Pokémon. Starting with Greninja. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 425, Stop Fighting, I Give Up. Thinking about it, Greninja looked at Zeraora with excitement. The somewhat flustered electric cat suddenly felt a throbbing in his heart. I said I didn't choose the wrong Pokémon. What's wrong? This frog is not nervous at all when seeing me. After all, I am also a mythical Pokémon. Seeing the dull-eyed electric cat, Greninja excitedly shouted to it. Cool, come on, boy, you want to fight me? Greninja's words made the already uneasy electric cat even more flustered. Forget it, I've said it, the opponents are all in place. Come on, fight. Clearing his mind, electric cat looked at Greninja seriously. Suddenly he moved and rushed towards Greninja, his hands shining with electric light. Zumu, who was standing aside, knew that this was electric cat's plasma lightning fist. Wow, he started right away. Both Pokémon are good at close combat, and now it depends on whose fist is harder and hurts more. But I'm sorry, this time, Zumu was on the side of Greninja. Greninja on the battlefield was stunned when he saw the electric cat rushing over with his ultimate. How could he fight like this? What do you mean? Do you think too highly of me? Or are you afraid that you can't beat me, so you just use your ultimate and rush over? Or maybe you don't think highly of me at all, so you just use your ultimate and are afraid of wasting time? Thinking of this, Greninja's face looked a little ugly. You make me look like I have no face. Greninja couldn't stand it anymore. He used a wind style, Spiral Water Shuriken to attack the electric cat that was rushing over. After knocking the electric cat away, Greninja didn't care about anything else, just hit it in the face, hard. Riding on Zeraora's body, he started a horrible brutality. Zumu, who was next to him, saw this scene and laughed out loud. It's still a frog. This guy knows how to play. Just pin Zeraora to the ground and beat him. No need to worry about the opponent running away, right? When other people fight, you use one skill and I use another. But when it comes to these two, there is no need for skills at all. It is just Zeraora who gets beaten up unilaterally. While Zumu was thinking about something, Zeraora was hit hard a few more times. Feeling the pain on his body, Zeraora was numb in his heart. Suddenly, he hurriedly shouted to Greninja, Brother, I was wrong, I give up, stop hitting me. But Greninja seemed not to hear it. He continued to punch and kick the electric cat. Zumu, who was standing next to him, looked at the scene in front of him and smiled. You said stop hitting me? Then the frog would not be a frog. However, it was not easy to seize Zeraora, and Zumu could not bear it. After all, they still have to get along with each other in the future. So let's just give him a beating. Zumu said to Greninja, Frog, ahem, that's enough. Greninja, who wanted to pretend that he didn't hear Zeraora's begging for mercy, was ready to continue beating him up. As a result, he suddenly heard Zumu's words, and he could only give up in disappointment. As for what the electric cat said, Koga Greninja could still pretend that he didn't hear it, but he couldn't ignore Zumu's words. This is a matter of principle. Koga Greninja immediately stopped beating. Standing in front of Zeraora, Koga Greninja helplessly pouted. I really didn't beat him enough. What a pity. At this time, Zeraora was lying on the ground with an innocent face, with a black line on his head. There was a word that he didn't know whether he should say. But seeing Koga Greninja's threatening eyes, Zeraora decided not to say it. Enduring the pain on his body, he pretended to be strong and smiled against his will. Thank you for showing mercy, Senior. As if seeing the fear in the electric cat's heart, Koga Greninja smiled kindly. He touched the electric cat's head and smoothed the hair that had just blown up. As he stroked, Koga Greninja found that the hair couldn't be smoothed at all. He patted his head impatiently. Trying to make a very kind expression, he said to the electric cat, Cool. A man who knows the times is a hero. You were quick to give in this time. Little brother, I am optimistic about you. After saying that, Greninja was too lazy to talk nonsense. He said hello to Zumu and returned to the Pokeball. The electric cat was a little confused when he heard his words. Is that the end? No, this frog is not a good thing. After beating me, he still comes to show off to me. After sorting out his thoughts, the electric cat, who felt that he was taken advantage of, looked at Zumu with a pitiful face. Zumu was happy. This electric cat is quite interesting, he gave in quickly. In comparison, he is really the first Pokémon who has not suffered too much torture from the frog. Zeraora, are you convinced? Zumu asked with a chuckle. The electric cat felt bitter. I, Zeraora, have been out for so long, and this is the first time I feel so aggrieved. How can I not be convinced? I am not convinced even when I pee, so I will be convinced by you in the future, okay? Human, you win. Zeraora got up from the ground in a mess, lowered his head, and admitted defeat helplessly. Zumu didn't care whether he really surrendered or not, as long as he could conquer him. As for whether he was obedient or not, there were so many big guys in the team, there would always be one who would teach this cute electric cat how to be an elf. Thinking in his heart, Zumu showed a gentle smile at the corner of his mouth. But his smile was synonymous with horror in the eyes of the electric cat. Although they didn't spend enough time together, Zeraora also knew that when this human smiled, it was definitely not a good thing. Forget it. Let's make the best of it. As an electric cat, what can I resist? Looking at Zumu's dangerous smile, the electric cat looked decadent, and he really accepted his fate. Zumu saw all the little movements of the electric cat, and this guy was really sensible. Handing the electric fruit he just found from the masked man to Zeraora, Zumu said, "This is what you tried your best to protect before, here, I give it to you." Zeraora saw this electric fruit and instantly pulled a face. I am not smart. But don't treat me as a fool. Not to mention that your routine has been used from ancient times to the present. Give a sweet date after hitting someone with a stick. Let's not talk about the stick. Let's talk about the sweet date. Damn, the sweet date is still mine. Looking at the man in front of him, Dian Mao kept cursing him in his heart for being shameless, despicable, and vulgar. The most annoying thing is that he has to eat this sweet date. Just because of this sweet date, Dian Mao got himself involved. If he doesn't eat it now, wouldn't it be a waste of time? These thoughts flashed through Dian Mao's mind. He immediately took the electric fruit in his hand and swallowed it in one gulp. If you eat my things, they will be considered my Pokémon. Under normal circumstances, my Pokémon and I have a very good relationship, and they rarely express displeasure with the trainer. For example, you can't accept this now. Chapter 426 Mission completed. Usually, when this happens, my Pokémon know what to do without me, the trainer, saying anything. Zumu's voice reached Zeraora's ears slowly. Zeraora was enjoying the boost brought by the electric fruit, and suddenly a trace of fear and regret arose in his heart. The next second, Greninja jumped out of the Pokeball by itself, eager to try. Trainer, I was wrong. I shouldn't have. 10,000 words omitted. Zumu looked at Zeraora, who was apologizing frantically, and immediately took a breath of cold air. So far, he has discovered the character of this new guy in the team, and he admits his weakness quickly. Greninja was also the same. Zeraora's crazy confession made him really unable to do it, and he had no choice but to return to the Pokeball again. Before leaving, he glanced at Zumu, probably thinking, next time you deal with this guy, you can change someone else. Anyway, I can't do it. Zumu shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. This was the first time he was defeated by Zu, who was holding a grudge against him. He was actually made to lose his temper by the Pokemon's apology. It's really outrageous. Zeraora successfully escaped. This guy who should or should not say anything really knows the situation. Among all the elves who have scolded Zumu, he is definitely the one with the best ending, no one else. However, no matter what this guy is like, he was finally conquered by Zumu. When Zumu conquered Zeraora with an empty elf ball, the system's voice sounded, ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the task. Get reward, 7 Wound Fist Secret Book. Hearing this, Zumu smiled faintly. In fact, rewards really don't matter. He just wants to find some excitement for his peaceful life. After putting Zeraora into the elf ball, Zumu turned and walked towards the secret realm. The matter is over. Zeraora is fine. and his mission is also successfully completed. Zumu didn't expect it to end so quickly. Those little bastards are not resistant to fighting at all. They are gone before they get serious, or start running away. What's the use, running away in front of me? You might as well save some energy and wait to die to chat and drink tea with the King of Hell. Otherwise, they would waste their energy and lose their lives. Alas, why would this group of people do this? Just when Zumu was full of thoughts, Lugia also carried him out of the secret realm and flew to Zulu. Zulu, who was still worried about her nephew just now, breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Zumu and Lugia coming out of the secret realm. She looked at Zumu back and forth and saw that he was injured. Zulu was really relieved. Just now, Zulu, who was outside, could vaguely hear the fierce battle in the secret realm. Apart from anything else, the transmission channel was shaken more than once by the aftermath of the battle, but she couldn't go in yet, fearing that she would cause trouble to Zumu, so she could only wait anxiously outside. The mission is completed. Let's go back. Zumu shook the Pokeball containing Zeraora in his hand towards Zulu and said with a smile. Seeing this scene, Zulu laughed helplessly. This kid really conquered Zeraora, but it makes sense. Zumu should like Zeraora, a handsome elf, very much. After all, he is a boy. Well, since everything is fine, let's go back. It's a good time to call my sister and report that we are safe. Zumu naturally had no objection. He took out his mobile phone and dialed the number. And, the mission is completed. I have brought Zeraora back. As for those scumbags, they can't get close to me at all. I took care of them in a few moves. As he said that, he remembered what happened just now and couldn't help laughing. The more he thought about it, the more interesting it was. What kind of weird characters were they? They made earth-shattering threats one by one, but they all fell down when they started fighting. He didn't have any combat experience at all. Hearing Zumu's joking tone, Zuzioxiel knew that it was not a big problem, so she asked, Zumu, how is Zeraora? Zumu laughed and said to the phone, don't worry, Auntie, Zeraora is not only fine, I also subdued him. By the way, there are some things I will tell you when I get back. After that, Zumu hung up the phone. He took Zulu to the Magic City. Magic City. Zumu and Zulu hurried back to the Magic City Academy. Auntie, you go back first. I'll go find Auntie Zioxiao and ask her to check how Zeraora is doing. Hearing Zumu's words, Zulu nodded and said to Zumu, okay, Zumu, then Auntie Lu will go back. Although Celebi can heal, it is not omnipotent. Sometimes you still have to go to the hospital for a more comprehensive examination to prevent the elves from being injured. For example, if the skill of melodic is self-recovery, if the Pokémon can recover and treat itself when it is injured, is there any need for the Pokémon hospital to continue operating? So, going to the hospital for a physical examination is inevitable. But Zumu does not recommend the examination like Charizard. Looking at Zulu's back, Zumu, who was about to leave, suddenly remembered that he said he was going to find Aunt Zioxiao, but where was she? Then, Zumu called Zioxiao again, and the call was connected instantly. Zumu, how is it? Have you arrived? Hearing Zioxiao's words, Zumu said weakly, Aunt, I don't seem to know where you are. It would have been better if Zumu didn't say it. As soon as Zioxiao said it, she also remembered that Zumu really didn't know where he was. So, Zioxiao smiled and said, oh, really? I was so busy that I forgot. Wait a minute, Zumu, I will send you the location now. After that, he hung up the phone directly. Looking at the busy tone of the phone in his hand, Zumu was really helpless. There was nothing he could do. Soon, Zioxiao sent the address. After taking a look at the address, Zumu felt that the place was not very far, but time is money, so let's just teleport there. Why not walk there? Because I'm lazy. Calling Arceus, Zumu was about to ask him to teleport with him, but suddenly remembered that Arceus didn't seem to be a GPS. It seems impossible to make him teleport just by looking at the map. Forget it. Let's just follow the trend and take a taxi. Otherwise, people will think that the post-elf civilization is some kind of Stone Age civilization. Zumu stopped a taxi and got in. The driver in the front seat was an old man with gray hair. Looking at the old man in front of him, Zoomu felt a sense of emotion. This old man, wow, it's not easy for him to work at such an old age. Thinking of this, Zoomu's chatterbox was rarely opened. He said jokingly, "Uncle, you are so old and still come out to entertain guests. It's hard." Chapter 427. They are as healthy as they can be. Zoomu's words made the old man sigh, and then he said helplessly, "It's because my wife saw that I was too lazy at home, so she asked me to come out and find something to do." Young man, let me tell you something. Although my wife is annoying me, when we first met, she was fascinated by my talent. After all, I was a decent man back then. Zoomu finally knew why he was not allowed to stay at home. Who can stand this old man? I just said something polite, and you started to talk a lot. Zoomu, who was really unbearable, saw the tall building next to him and hurriedly said, "Uncle, look at this tall building, it's quite tall." I thought the old man would see his embarrassment. Who would have thought that the old man would be more excited when he heard it, and said to Zoomu, "Young man, don't look at the height of the building. I tell you, a towering mouth starts from the ground." Zoomu was numb. Since this didn't work, he would not speak. When the old man saw that the young man didn't speak, he thought Zoomu must have a dull personality. Then he said, "Young man, you can't be so silent. You should know that silence is golden. It doesn't mean you can't talk, but you should talk less nonsense." Zoomu stared blankly at the elf hospital in front of him. "It has only been 10 minutes since I got on the car, but in these 10 minutes, do you know how I got here?" Zoomu shook his head, and suddenly some strange things came into his mind. He stopped thinking about these useless things and started to do business. Zoomu walked straight into the hospital and found the service center. He said to the nurse standing inside, "Do you know where Dr. Zoo is? We just contacted each other by phone." The nurse looked at Zoomu and said to Zoomu, "You are Dr. Zoo's nephew. Dr. Zoo just notified me. Please follow me now." Then he walked out and went upstairs. Following the nurse's footsteps, Zoomu came to Zhu Zioxiao's office. Looking at the sign in front of him, Zoomu couldn't help but think, or let's say that the genes of this old Zhu family are strong, let alone his useless father. Just look at these 7 ants. Each of them has their own talents. They have great status in all walks of life, so why do they need to work hard? No matter what they lack or want, there will definitely be someone to help them. Following the footsteps of the ants, the Zhu family will surely become bigger and stronger and create greater glory. Thinking of this, Zoomu walked into the office. He said to Zhu Zioxiao, who was working, "Aunt, I'm here, and the task you assigned to me has been successfully completed." Seeing Zoomu coming, Zhu Zioxiao quickly stood up, took Zoomu's hand, and checked his whole body. After finding that there was indeed no problem, Zhu Zioxiao said to Zoomu, "Zoomu, I'm glad you're okay, and I'm relieved. Tell me about it. You didn't encounter any danger this time." Zhu Zioxiao only saw Zoomu in front of her sneer, and said, "Aunt, don't worry. Didn't I say that they are all a bunch of rotten fish and shrimps? I don't take them seriously." Zoomu's appearance made Zhu Zioxiao nod secretly. As expected of a child of the Zhu family, this arrogant attitude is not bad at all. "How is Zeraora? Wasn't he seriously injured when I got the news?" Zoomu smiled faintly and said, "Aunt, don't worry. Zeraora has been subdued by me. I simply asked Celebi to treat him. I will need you to check him carefully later." Hearing this, Zhu Zioxiao smiled with relief. Zhu Zioxiao, who didn't know Zoomu very well, knew that Zoomu had many mythical beasts in his hands, and now he has subdued Zeraora. It can really be said that his nephew is a collector of mythical beasts. Wherever a mythical beast appears, Zoomu will definitely appear in that place, and then subdue the mythical beast in the surprised eyes of everyone. Look, wasn't this Zeraora subdued by Zoomu? It might not be a bad thing for Zeraora to follow Zoomu. It is not a simple thing to want to own a mythical beast. First of all, you must have the ability to protect the mythical beast. Otherwise, if you harm the elf, you will also lose yourself. After hearing Zulu talk about Zoomu, Zhu Zioxiao now feels 100 times more at ease about Zoomu. In this world, there is almost no one who can touch Zoomu. To put it bluntly, whoever wants to touch Zoomu must first pass the level of Zoomu's father and Zoomu's aunt. Otherwise, dream. At this moment, Zumu slapped the Pokeball, and instantly the elves of all sizes filled Zuzioxiao's office. Zumu said to Zuzioxiao, "Aunt, I'm going to trouble you to take care of my group of elves. Please check them carefully for me." Charizard jumped out immediately after hearing this and said to Zuzioxiao with a serious face, "Roar tilde. Yes, check them carefully. Otherwise I'm always worried that I have hidden injuries." Dragonite on the side heard this and felt that he couldn't listen anymore. "How many chapters have you not fought in a war, and you can still get hidden injuries? Yo Roar tilde. Old spray. Can we have some shame? If you are like this, I can't be friends with you." He looked at Charizard with contempt. The Charizard who was scolded said, "I don't want to say anything now. I don't want to care about anything. I just want to live well. Come on, check me to see if I have any hidden injuries. I can't die young." Celebi saw Zuzioxiao, a person with a profession similar to hers, and they were all nurses and mothers. With some joy in her heart, she jumped to Zuzioxiao. "Rabbi, hello, my name is Celebi. I'm sorry to bother you later. Thank you for checking me." Looking at the cute Celebi, Zuzioxiao felt that her girlish heart was about to be aroused. Who can stand such cuteness? The girlish Zuzioxiao changed her usual coldness, touched Celebi's head, and said, "It's okay, I don't mind the trouble. I'm happy to help you check." While speaking, she touched Celebi's head again. Koga Ninja, who had been silent all the time, said, "Cool, princess. Check it out carefully later, especially the little brother over there, the one with yellow hair." Zeraoro, who had not yet reacted, heard Koga Ninja say this, and was full of black lines. "What do you mean by yellow hair? I have a name, okay? My name is Zeraora." At this time, Zeraora had long forgotten what she said in the secret realm just now. What about changing the name or not? No, she didn't say it at all. Now when he heard Greninja calling him the yellow-haired one, Zeraora felt that he could still tolerate it. If not for anything else, just because of the beating Greninja gave him just now. He knew it in his heart. Chapter 428. What? They're all here. Zuzioxiao looked at the noisy Pokémon with a smile on her face. Suddenly, she saw two Mewtwo standing aside without saying a word. She said to Zumu, "Dalmu, these two are Mewtwo, the two Mewtwo that are killing all around on the battlefield." Zumu nodded and also cast his eyes on the two Mewtwo. "These two Pokémon are good in everything, but their personalities are not very good." "Really? You can't make friends with such a thing." "There is a saying that silence is golden. It doesn't mean that you should not talk, but talk less nonsense." "No, I was completely brainwashed by the taxi driver. Why do these weird things always appear in my mind?" Zumu shook his head and cleared the useless things in his mind. He said, "These two Mewtwo are good in everything, but they don't talk much." Zuzioxiao said, "It's okay, fists are the hard truth." Seeing that this group of Pokémons were getting more and more noisy, Zumu quickly said to Zuzioxiao, "Auntie, let's check them out." Although he knew in his heart that they must be fine, but since he was here, he might as well go down with a dragon. Zuzioxiao nodded after hearing his words, picked up the phone on the table, dialed a number, and a sweet voice came from the other side of the phone. "Dr. Zu, what do you want me to do?" Zuzioxiao's temperament changed instantly, and she said to the phone, "Come on, a few people, check the elves." After that, she hung up the phone and said to Zumu, "Dalmu, you have too many elves. I can't handle it alone. I need to find two helpers." Zumu heard it. "Alas, can this be blamed on me? I don't want to be like this. Who made me so charming that these elves swear allegiance to death?" Zeraora on the side didn't know what Zumu was thinking. If he knew, he would definitely jump up and shout, "What does it mean to swear allegiance to death? Dare I surrender? If I don't surrender, I will die." Of course, Zeraora on the side didn't know Zumu's inner thoughts. At this moment, a knock on the door came in. "Come in." The pleasant physical examination began just like this. Zumu walked out of the elf hospital with a look of relief. "Didn't we say that we were going to check up the elves? Why did you make me so tired?" "Those elves were so energetic when they were checking up, but they made me like this." Zumu felt that today was definitely his unlucky day. He was exhausted all day long, but when he thought that he would see his Sirona soon, he felt that he could still fight. Sirona was his harbor for rest. As long as he saw Sirona, Zumyu felt full of energy. Thinking of this, Zumyu patted Arceus on his waist and said to him, "Arceus, go home." After receiving Zumyu's order, Arceus immediately began to release skills. In a blink of an eye, one man and one elf arrived at the door of their home. It's strange to say that the two of them hadn't seen each other for only one day, but why did it feel like they hadn't seen each other for a century? Zumyu thought to himself, it must be my deep love for Sirona that made me have this illusion and made me feel like I hadn't seen her for 3 years. After thinking about it, Zumyu praised himself in his heart. There are not many good men like this now. Thinking about it, Zumyu knocked on the door and shouted, "Sirona, I'm back." As soon as the voice fell, a burst of hurried footsteps came from the door. Zumyu didn't have to think about it. It must be Sirona. The door opened, and Sirona's delicate face appeared in his eyes again. He could see that Sirona's eyes were full of joy. "Zumyu, you're back. I thought you wouldn't be back today." Seeing Sirona, Zumyu's mood instantly improved. He touched Sirona's head and said to her gently, "I went to help my aunt with some things today. I also thought I wouldn't be back today." Who would have thought that the group of people were so bad? They were all useless before I used my full strength. You must be hungry. I'll cook for you. As he said that, Zumyu took Sirona into the house, walked to the refrigerator with familiar movements, and took out an ice cream. He handed it to Sirona, pulled her to the sofa, and walked into the kitchen alone. Start cooking for Sirona. It's okay to go hungry, but you can't let your wife go hungry. This is the basic operation of being a good man. I am a good man, and I speak for myself. Thinking about things in his heart, Zumyu's hands are not slow at all, and he starts to cook quickly. Or do you say that this is a good man? Not only is he quick to cook, but he also tastes good. When Zumyu just brought the food to the table, he found that Sirona was looking at him eagerly. Zumyu smiled and said to Sirona, "Come and eat. You must be hungry. Have you taken good care of yourself today?" Hearing Zumyu's words, Sirona nodded and said, "It's good, Zumyu. You don't have to worry about me. I can take care of myself." After that, Sirona lowered her head and ate fiercely. Zumyu saw Sirona's actions and smiled helplessly. He also said that he could take care of himself. "I'm afraid it's not the food he cooked. She didn't eat well today." Just when Zumyu felt sorry for Sirona, his phone rang again. After seeing the note on the phone, Zumyu picked up the phone and said to the phone, "Aunt Zuhong, why did you think of calling me?" A doting voice came from the other side of the phone. "Why, Zumyu, are you blaming your aunt?" Zumyu smiled in his heart when he heard it, and said to Zuhong, "How could it be, Aunt?" Zuhong only heard, "Tomorrow your aunts and I will go to the Magic City to see you. I have a good news to tell you tomorrow. By the way, my eldest brother and sister-in-law will also go." Hearing this news, Zumyu was stunned. What happened again? Why did everyone come? There is also good news, not to mention the aunts who are busy every day. Even his useless father who guards the border is coming. When Zumyu was puzzled, the phone rang again. This time it was none other than Zumyu's mother. Zumyu immediately picked up the phone and said to the phone, "Mom, what happened?" Zumyu said happily, "It's nothing serious. Your father and I will go to your place tomorrow and tell you good news." "Okay. No more. Let's talk about it when we meet tomorrow." After that, he hung up the phone. Zumyu looked at the phone in his hand with a question mark. What happened? It's over. When did my mother get stuck? This one is stuck. There is really one sentence, but no next sentence. Hang up directly. What good news will there be tomorrow that I need to trouble these elders to inform me one by one? Chapter 429. What is the good news? Forget it. Don't think about it for now. Let's talk about tomorrow's matter tomorrow. I haven't seen Sirona for a long time. Now Zumyu just wants to cherish Sirona. When he approached the dining table, he saw that Sirona had finished her meal and was lying happily on the sofa. Zumyu, who was already worried, couldn't eat at this time. Eating is not as important as Sirona. Thinking about it, Zumyu said to Sirona, "Sirona, have you finished eating? Take a rest after you finish eating. My family will come tomorrow." Sirona, who had a happy face just now, suddenly became nervous when she heard Zumyu's words, and said to Zumyu, "What? Aunt is coming." After that, She looked at Zumu with a nervous face. Seeing Sirona's nervous look, Zumu smiled and then comforted her. "It's okay. It is said that there is some good news tomorrow. Not only are they coming, but my aunts are coming too." Zumu continued, "Okay, we have finished our meal, so take a rest." After that, he took Sirona's hand and walked into the bedroom. Did nothing, just sleep. The next day, a knock on the door woke Zumu from his sleep. Zumu opened his eyes and suddenly remembered that today was a family gathering. Looking at Sirona beside him, Zumu couldn't bear to wake her up. Forget it. Let her sleep for a while. While thinking, Zumu put on his clothes. He went directly to the door and opened it. As expected, it was Zumu's mother who was thinking about day and night. Of course, there was also his useless father. Seeing Zumu's appearance, Xiaoyu knew at once that he had just got up. He said to him, "Didn't I tell you yesterday that we all have to come today? Don't sleep in. Why are you up so late?" Zufeng, who was watching the excitement, said secretly, "What else can I do? It's not that your son doesn't listen to you." After that, he looked at Zumu with a mocking face. Unfortunately, Zumu is not afraid of him now. The man who left his wife and children when he was a child left. He didn't say anything, although he knew that he was guarding the border. "You can't not go home, right?" Zumu didn't dare to say anything because he couldn't beat him before. Now Zumu is a demigod. Do you think you are still afraid of him? He punches his father and hugs his mother. This is a filial son. Without waiting for Zumu to say anything, Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at Zufeng, took Zumu's hand, and walked into the house. He asked Zumu, "Xiaomu, where is Sirona? Why didn't I see her?" Zumu said with embarrassment, "Sirona is sleeping and hasn't woken up yet. I didn't call her just now." Xiaoyu smiled meaningfully at Zumu when she heard it. "Xiaomu, take care of your body. You should be more restrained and don't be so anxious at such a young age." Zufeng on the side also nodded in approval. He said, "You are steady. Don't be anxious. You are still young." The words of the two made Zumu black. Let's not talk about anything else. Zumu doesn't want to care what Zufeng and his wife think. Now he just wants to shout, "What's wrong with me being young? I am in good health and strong, and my age is my capital of pride." Of course Zumu couldn't say these. He could only nod helplessly. It was considered as an agreement. Also, cheap dad, don't look at me with that look that says you know it all. Just because I don't say it doesn't mean I don't know what you mean. Just when Zumu and his son exchanged glances, a sweet voice came from upstairs. "Oh, Auntie is here. I'm so sorry." It was Sirona who spoke, and the voices downstairs woke her up. She changed her clothes and came down. When Xiaoyu saw Sirona, her eyes lit up. She waved to Sirona and said, "Sirona, come and let your auntie take a look. If Zumu dares to bully you, tell me and I'll help you deal with him." As she said that, she looked at Sirona with a gentle face. Hearing Xiaoyu's words, Sirona's face turned red, and she said to Xiaoyu weakly, "No, Aunt, Zumu didn't bully me. It's okay." "Sirona, if Zumu bullies you, tell Dad. I'll take care of it for you." A voice came from the door, and everyone looked carefully. "Isn't this Kyle, the chief of the Western continent?" Kyle, who was being hammered by Zufeng. Kyle's words made Zufeng a little unhappy. "What do you mean? Zumu's father is still standing here. You are going to deal with Zumu in front of his father. You don't take me seriously." Thinking of this, Zufeng showed a dangerous and kind smile, and said to Kyle, "Ah, isn't this brother Kyle? I haven't seen you for so long. How are you doing?" As he said, Zufeng was about to hug Kyle's shoulders. Kyle was also confused. He originally thought that since Xiaoyu was here, he could pretend to be a little bit powerful, and even if he couldn't beat him, he could run away. But who knew that Zufeng, the plague god, was here? The last time Zufeng beat him up, the scene was still fresh in his memory. Thinking of this, Kyle laughed and said to Zufeng, "Brother Zufeng, what have you been busy with these 2 days? It's been a long time since we last met. When we have time, let's catch up. When we have time." As he said that, he secretly took 2 steps back. Zufeng didn't care about that. He sneered and said to Kyle, "Don't. I have time now. Let's go and catch up." He put his arm around Kyle's shoulders and walked out. In the eyes of Zumu and others, this situation was Zufeng dragging Kyle out. Zumu was happy. This useless old man of his was quite sensible. Seeing that Shirona was there, it was difficult for him to take action, so he took action directly. Then, Zumu asked Xiaoyu, "Mom, you all said there is good news. What is the good news?" Hearing Zumu's words, Xiaoyu smiled and said, "You will know in a while. Don't worry, it is definitely good news." After that, she stopped talking. After a while, Zufeng and Kyle, who had just gone out, came back. Kyle was seen following Zufeng with a bruised face. At this time, Zufeng looked refreshed. Really, although he said that he couldn't beat his son now, it was not easy to beat you, his little brother. Not to mention Zufeng's mood, but Kyle's mood now is very bad. He said he came to watch the ceremony. How did he become a beaten person? "I surrender." Zumu saw Kyle with a bruised face, and suddenly felt a bad taste in his heart, and said to Kyle, "Uncle Kyle, what's wrong with you? Why is your face so hurt?" Zumu's words made Kyle curse in his heart, but looking at Zufeng in front of him, he couldn't say it. He could only smile awkwardly and said, "It's okay, it's okay. I was just strolling with your father and didn't notice the stone under my feet. I accidentally fell down. It's okay." Hearing his words, Zumu suppressed his smile and said, "Uncle Kyle, please pay attention to your feet when you walk next time." Chapter 430 Everyone arrives. Kyle looked at Zufeng in front of him and really didn't want to say anything. This naughty kid was still talking back at him. He was so filial to his family. Seeing Kyle like this, Xiaoyu said, "Okay, let's go to the Zhu family's ancestral home and wait for others." When Zumu heard Xiaoyu's words, his curiosity instantly exploded. He couldn't wait to see if he had any good news. These people's mouths were glued together, and no matter how he asked, he couldn't get anything out. Now hearing Xiaoyu's words, Zumu immediately said, "Okay, let's go." As he said that, Zumu's brain got hot, and he took the lead and walked out without saying a word. Everyone just watched Zumu walk out by himself, and they stood there, motionless. Sure enough, after a while, Zumu came back again. He said to Xiaoyu with an embarrassed look on his face, "Mom, where is the Zhu family's old house?" "I don't know either." Without waiting for Xiaoyu to speak, Zufeng laughed. He said, "You have to ask your father about this. You don't know, but your father knows." After saying that, he walked out with a heroic and proud look. Looking at Zufeng's proud look in front of him, Zumu was really furious. Damn it, this man pretended again, but there was no way. Who let him know? Thinking of this, Zumu took Sirona's hand, followed Zufeng's footsteps, and walked out. The people in the Zhu family's ancestral home followed Zufeng to an ancient street. The street was full of old houses full of historical traces. Although they showed the memory of time, Zumu and others could clearly feel the majesty of the houses. Following Zufeng's footsteps, everyone entered one of them. Zufeng, who had just stepped into the old house, suddenly changed his temperament. If someone who didn't know Zufeng saw him just now, he would find that he was a dandy, but now seeing him again, he would find that he was a melancholy man full of sadness. Zumu, who was following Zufeng, also noticed the change in his father. Without waiting for him to ask, Zufeng said to Zumu, "Xiaomu, do you know that I used to live in this house? At that time, it was my happiest time. No matter what happened, your grandfather would protect me. No matter what mistakes I made, he would protect me. But when your grandfather died, the world of our Zhu family changed. All the enemies in the past rushed to me. I was just a playboy with no ability. I could only watch our Zhu family's foundation collapse bit by bit. So I started to work hard. But what if I succeeded? Our Zhu family has been driven underground, and even your ants have dispersed." As soon as Zufeng finished speaking, Zhu Hong's voice came from outside the door. "Brother, don't belittle yourself. It is because of your existence that our family can continue to this day. If it weren't for you, we might not know what would happen now." As they said this, the 7 sisters of the Zhu family hugged and cried. There was nothing wrong with what they said. Why were the 7 sisters of the Zhu family able to get to where they are today step by step? It was because of Zufeng's fame in the border that the enemies of the Zhu family were afraid. But after all these years, those people still have evil intentions, just waiting for the day when Zufeng is gone, so that they can wipe out the roots. Unfortunately, Zumu has grown up now, and their plan has failed. Now Zumu is like a pillar in the eyes of the Zhu family. It is also the hope for the rise of the Zhu family. At this point, Zhu Feng looked at Zhu Mu and said to him, Dao Mu, you just kept asking what the good news is. Now I can tell you. Zhu Hong on the side continued, after several of us discussed, we decided to let the eldest brother pass the position of the head of the family to you. Zhu Feng also looked at Zhu Mu with admiration, and then said, you have given us a lot of surprises. From your first battle to now, we have been paying attention to you. Zhu Mu's head is confused now. What's going on? Is this good news? Didn't I say at the beginning that I can revitalize the Zhu family? But you told me so loudly. Come on, son, let you be the head of the family. I'm numb, brothers. At this time, Zhu Mu just reacted. No, if I say this again, I might really become the head of the Zhu family. What should I do? I still want to travel the world with Sirona. Thinking of this, Zhu Mu hurriedly said, Dad, stop it. You won't forget how old I am. Otherwise, you can be my father for 2 more years. When I mature, you can give it to me. Isn't it a happy ending? Zhu Mu looked at his father expectantly. Who knew? Zhu Feng said to Zhu Mu seriously, Dao Mu, you must know that time waits for no one. I also wanted to be a playboy back then. When I finally accepted the Zhu family, our Zhu family had already fallen apart. This is the lesson I learned, Dao Mu. If you don't listen to the old man, you will suffer in front of you. When Zhu Mu heard this, he could clearly feel the expectant eyes of everyone around him. Just when Zhu Mu wanted to speak, Zhu Feng interrupted him. He then said, Dao Mu, I understand your psychology. Your grandfather wanted me to inherit the position of head of the family, but I was young and frivolous back then and just wanted to be happy. But it wasn't until I saw your mother and we escaped from the world's pursuit together that I realized how helpless a person without strength is when facing difficulties. At that time, I knew that sometimes a person's strength is really not strong, unless you have the strength to be your enemy. As he said that, Zhu Feng turned his gaze to Zhao Yu and said again, why did I have to abandon my wife and children and go to the border? It was because I didn't have the strength to protect you, so I could only let you and your mother live in anonymity. Hearing Zhu Feng's words, Zhu Mu sneered, I know your situation, and now I understand what you did at the time, but I'm not the same as you. Back then, you didn't have the strength to face the whole world, but I do. Now I can face the hostility of the whole world and still not lose the upper hand. As he said that, Zhu Mu turned his gaze to Sirona. You are still the head of the Zhu family. I just want to go to school and spend the next few years, and then travel the world with Sirona. The world is so big, I want to see it. Before Zhu Mu finished speaking, an old voice came from the door. Child, your idea is wrong. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, and the person who came was none other than the chief of the East Continent. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 431 The Zhu family stands up. Dao Yuanyang's words made Zhu Mu stunned. What was going on today? Why did the chiefs of the East and West continents gather at the Zhu family's old house? No, they definitely wanted more than just to pass on the throne. Thinking about it, Zhu Mu was about to open his mouth to speak, but Dao Yuanyang bowed his hand and continued. Let's not talk about those things in the past today. Let the past be the past. There is no point in mentioning it again. Now your status and prestige in the hearts of the people of the world. I don't need to tell you more. You know that everyone has you in their hearts, and they will agree with you no matter what you do. But, can you be satisfied with just this? Or, do you just watch everyone treat you as a leader, and you do nothing? Enjoy the status quo? Now people in the East and West continents regard you as the future emperor, and what about you? Dao Yuanyang's words made Zhu Mu really not know how to respond, so he could only keep silent and listen to Dao Yuanyang's explanation. Dao Yuanyang continued, the Emperor of Man not only wants people to recognize you, but also wants the heaven to recognize you. Only in this way can you suppress the luck of the Emperor of Man. If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. You should understand this truth. Zhu Mu was stunned. What is the luck of the Emperor of Man? What era is it? There is still the Emperor of Man? Seeing Zhu Mu's dull expression, Zhao Yuanyang smiled indifferently. The man in front of him is not only the pillar of the Zhu family, but also the pillar of the entire East and West continent. Things on the world battlefield cannot be concealed at all, or it can be said that the two chiefs do not want to conceal them. They want to build momentum for Zhu Mu. Let Zhu Mu reduce the twists and turns on the road to becoming the Emperor of Man. This is exactly what Zhao Yuanyang and Ka hope to see. The two have been chiefs for many years, and they are well aware of other people's little ideas. So, the two hope that Zhu Mu's growth will be smooth. Although they all know that this is impossible. After all, how can you see the rainbow without going through wind and rain? However, the two still hope to reduce difficulties for Zhu Mu with their strength and current foundation. Zhu Mu vaguely understood what Zhao Yuanyang meant. To be honest, Zhu Mu really had no feelings about the human emperor or anything like that. He was not interested in those things. All he hoped for was to be able to live a peaceful life with Sirona. If an enemy invaded, Zhu Mu dared to say that he would lead the people of this world to fight back. Now he was just waiting for Arceus to collect all the stone tablets and have the ability to break the world, so that he could fight back with the people of the post-elf civilization world, completely eliminate all threats and have a peaceful life. Otherwise, who can stand this and that every day? But looking at the expectant eyes of his cheap father and the approving eyes of his aunts, perhaps Zhu Mu did not realize that his state of mind had changed at this time. In the past, he yearned for ordinariness, but now he suddenly understood. He was not only responsible for his own expectations, but also for the expectations of millions of people in this world. Thinking about it, Zhu Mu's eyes really became firm, and he said to Zhu Feng, "Dad, I am willing to accept the position of the head of the Zhu family." Hearing Zhu Mu's words, Zhu Feng smiled heartily, patted Zhu Mu on the shoulder, and said heroically, "Good boy, you are worthy of my seed. I know your father. You will never let us down." Zhu Mu looked at Zhu Feng's actions, and his heart was warmed. The man in front of him is his father in this world after all, and he will definitely not harm himself no matter what. Wait, since he trusts so much, then, in an instant, a plan came to Zhu Mu's mind, and he said to the happy Zhu Feng, "Dad, I promised you that I would accept the position of the head of the family, so will you also promise me something?" Zhu Feng, who was still happy, heard this and his heart was beating. What's the situation? What is Zhu Mu going to do again? To be honest, Zhu Feng has no temper for Zhu Mu now. Other people's fathers don't like their sons, pick them out and beat them up, and the sons have to kneel down and beg for mercy. But what about him? Does he dare? He could indeed pick them out, but it was not certain who would get beaten. What if he got bruised and battered? Was it because he didn't see the stone under his feet? As Kyle said, Zhu Feng knew in his heart that if it came to being beaten, he would most likely get beaten. No, not even 80%, 100%. And it would be miserable. He knew that Zhu Mu had wanted to fight him for a long time, but he just hadn't found the opportunity. If Zhu Feng said to Zhu Mu, "Come on, son, let's fight," he dared to guarantee that Zhu Mu would definitely call out his group of divine beasts and beat him up in a group, leaving him speechless. When it came to beating him, Zhu Mu would definitely not show any mercy. On the contrary, he would get more excited the more he beat him. Maybe he could even sing while beating him. Zhu Feng thought about it, and suddenly felt a chill. This was all he didn't want to see. No, this was all he didn't want to feel. As a father, he was beaten by his son and had no power to fight back. Not to mention others, even Kyle, that stinky boy, would secretly laugh beside him. Will he mock him? In that case, how can he be a big brother? Thinking of this, Zhu Feng pretended to be calm and asked, "Zhao Mu, what's the matter?" "Dad can see if I can help you. As long as you say it, Dad will definitely help. We are father and son, just say it directly." As he said, Zhu Feng looked at Zhu Mu with a worried look. He was really scared, afraid that Zhu Mu would make some unreasonable requests. If Zhu Mu really wanted to learn from him, he really couldn't do it. Seeing Zhu Feng's look, Zhu Mu couldn't help but feel a little funny. What is this cheap old man worried about? I'm not a bad person, am I? After all, I'm your own son. Thinking of this, Zhu Mu said to Zhu Feng, "Dad, I can be the head of the family, but how about you still be responsible for the family affairs?" Hearing Zhu Mu's words, Zhu Feng was shocked. No, how can this be possible? He still wants to retire from the border, and he still wants to travel the world with you. Zhu Feng has fought all his life. Can't he have some fun? I am the head of the family and you ask me to work. I am not the head of the family and you still ask me to work. Then I have worked so hard for nothing. Zhu Feng blurted out, no, this is not possible at all. I also want to travel the world with your mother. Zhu Mu heard it and exclaimed, wow, are you sure this is your biological father? Zhu Mu still wants to travel the world with Shirona, but he has never found a chance. Now Zhu Feng passed the head of the family to Zhu Mu. Then go and play by yourself. Delusion, dreaming. Zhu Mu's face darkened instantly. This cheap father is not just cheating his son, this is cheating him to death. Chapter 432 Chapter 432 Can you say something that we can understand? Give me a lot of things to do, and then you want to go out and play? No, I'm not going, and no one can go. Zhu Feng regretted the moment he said it. He slapped himself several times in his heart. How could he say that? He had worked so hard for so long, just to let Zhu Mu become the head of the family and then liberate himself. Now he is about to succeed, and he finally threw himself out. Just because of this sentence, he almost got himself trapped again. Several thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. The most important thing now is not to regret, but to find a more suitable excuse. This excuse must convince Zhu Mu. Zhu Mu looked at Zhu Feng who was lost in thought in front of him, and his face became darker and darker. This cheap old man. Zhu Mu really wanted to punch Zhu Feng hard. He cheated others and cheated his son. I really don't know why Zhao Yu fell in love with such a thing. Zhu Mu felt it was not worth it for Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu, who was on the side, looked at the father and son who were fighting in front of him, and a smile unconsciously appeared at the corner of his mouth. Okay, you two stop making trouble. Seeing Zhao Yu speak, Zhu Feng did not dare to continue to stiffen his neck and remain silent, and could only complain, I'm not making trouble, son, you can say anything about other things, but you said that I have resigned, and you want me to work again? That's impossible. After saying that, Zhu Feng looked at Zhu Mu with a straightforward face. If he could do it again, Zhu Feng would never be so rude. But now there is no way. He has already said that sentence, and now Zhu Feng is riding a tire and it is difficult to get off. Zhu Mu never thought that there would be such a shameless person in the world. Looking at Zhu Feng with a bad face, Zhu Mu really didn't want to say anything to this cheap father. He ate everything in a day and couldn't do anything well. He couldn't solve such a small matter on the battlefield, and asked Zhu Mu, his son, to solve it personally. Clearing his mind, Zhu Mu said to Zhu Feng firmly, no, I don't have time to manage these things now. If you don't want to do it, then there's no need to talk. The position of the head of the family will be vacant there. Seeing the angry father and son, Kyle almost laughed out loud in the back. Zhu Feng was worrying about how to solve Zhu Mu's palace coup. Seeing Kyle gloating in the back, he suddenly got angry and walked directly to Kyle and hugged Kyle's shoulders. Pretending to be curious, he asked, Kyle, what are you laughing at here? With our relationship, can you tell me? After saying that, he looked at Kyle with a look full of ill intentions. That look clearly said, I know what you are laughing at. You'd better be honest now and don't get yourself into trouble. Kyle, who was just feeling happy in the back, was in a bad mood at this moment. How can he reason with this? It obviously has nothing to do with him, and this is dragging it back to him. He just wanted to be a spectator, watching the life and death internal competition between Zhu Mu and his son, clapping and laughing. Now, it seems that he is going to be beaten again? Zhu Feng, this villain, is really a jerk. Zhu Feng can't beat Zhu Mu, and he doesn't dare to do it, so he wants to find Kyle to practice. Who would be happy with this? He was madly complaining in his heart, but on the surface Kyle forced a smile. He looked at Zhu Feng ingratiatingly and smiled. Brother Zhu Feng, it's nothing. I'm happy for you. You are about to resign and be free and easy. Isn't your life getting better little by little? Unlike me, I still have to run around. Brother, I'm envious. As he said, he looked at Zhao Yu for help. Kyle knew that among these people, only Zhao Yu could save him. No matter how awesome Zhu Feng was, he didn't dare to offend Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu, who was standing aside, saw Kyle's gaze and couldn't help but chuckled. She said to Zhu Feng, okay, stop making trouble. Can't you just be nice? Let Zhao Mu inherit the position of the head of the family first, and we'll talk about the rest later. Hearing Zhao Yu's words, Zhu Feng nodded. That's right. Now the mess of the Zhu family's head has to be thrown out as soon as possible. Otherwise, Zhu Feng will definitely be exhausted by those things. Zhu Feng turned to Zhu Mu and said, Zhao Mu, let's talk about our things later. You inherit the position of the head of the family first. Let's complete the ceremony first. As for whether to work or not, let's talk about it slowly. Zhu Mu didn't care about whether to inherit the position of the head of the family, but he estimated that it would be troublesome in the future. But now that my mother has spoken, let's do it first. Anyway, there is plenty of time. He has many ways to make Zhu Feng work honestly. Thinking of this, Zhu Mu said lightly, okay. Zhu Feng, who got the response, grinned instantly. Today is a good day. He is about to reach the peak of his life. As for Zhu Mu's attitude, Zhu Feng didn't care. As long as Zhu Mu agreed, as long as Zhu Mu could become the head of the family, everything else was a small matter. Zhu Feng led everyone into the ancestral hall. When he came to the middle, he fell to his knees with a thump. In the eyes of everyone, he knelt down on the ground. He kowtowed to the spirit tablet in front of him. Zhu Feng looked at the spirit tablets in front of him. The Zhu family, which was once so prosperous, has now become what it is now in his hands. The glory of the past is gone. If it weren't for him struggling to hold on, I'm afraid that the Zhu family ancestral hall would be nowhere to be found now. Thinking of this, Zhu Feng stood in front of the spirit tablets and said to the people in front of him, let's start now. The ceremony begins. After saying this, Zhu Feng's expression became extremely serious. The 7 sisters of the Zhu family also stood on both sides separately. Zhu Feng was heard saying loudly, ancestors, I, Zhu Feng, the 40th generation of the Zhu family, am here to pay my respects. Zhu Feng has been the head of the family for 20 years. Since the beginning of the decline of my Zhu family, Zhu Feng has fought on the border battlefield to ensure the continuity of my Zhu family's essence. I dare not forget the idea of revitalizing my Zhu family. Today, my Zhu family has Zhi Mu, who is 18 years old. He is younger than his father. It's like a lily and a jade tree, and you want them to grow in the courtyard. Although Zhu Feng is Zhu Mu's father, his ability is really insufficient, and he is much worse than him. Zhu Feng is ashamed. So I hand over the position of the head of the family today. I hope my Zhu family will return to the peak. After saying that, Zhu Feng's eyes swept through the 7 sisters of the Zhu family. Then he said, the elders of the Zhu family are all here. If anyone is dissatisfied, you can speak in public. Hearing this, the 7 sisters of the Zhu family were silent. This made Kyle next to him miserable. It would be fine if you said something I could understand during the ceremony. Kyle didn't understand a word of what you just said. Ignoring Kyle, Zhu Feng bowed to the spirit tablet and said, I hope the ancestors will take notice. At this moment, Zhu Mu clearly felt a strong spiritual force appear in the ancestral hall. In the eyes of everyone, a token fell from the sky. Seeing this token, Zhu Feng was delighted, which meant that the ancestors of the Zhu family agreed that Zhu Mu would be the head of the family. He said to Zhu Mu, Zhao Mu, come quickly and take the token. Chapter 433, Luck. Hearing Zhu Feng's words, Zhu Mu hurriedly took 2 steps forward and grabbed the token in front of him. Zhu Mu took the token and looked at it carefully. He only felt that this token was neither copper, iron nor steel. This is a magical thing, and Zhu Mu didn't know what material it was made of. It seems that the Zhu family still has a lot of secrets, but there is no need to study it now. Zhu Mu feels that these secrets will appear in front of him sooner or later, so Zhu Mu is not in a hurry now. What he is most interested in now is the mental power that has just appeared. That mental power is abnormally huge. It doesn't look like the mental power of a human, but more like the mental power of an elf. But what kind of elf can have such a great mental power? Just when Zhu Mu was about to ask a question, Kyle on the side said first, are you done now? When Kyle was called here, it was clearly said that he came to watch the ceremony. What about now? It's done. It's done in such a short time? Kyle's heart was extremely broken. Brothers and sisters, I am very busy. Who am I? I am the chief of the Western continent. I deal with a lot of things every day. Now you tell me that Zhu Feng patted your son's shoulder and stood in front of the spirit tablet and said a few words. and the ceremony was over. What kind of world? Just saying a few words is called an inheritance ceremony. The most important thing is that I got a beating. It was almost a second beating. Kyle couldn't believe the current scene. He didn't dare to say what was in his heart, so he could only force a smile and said to Zhu Feng again in disbelief, "Brother, are you guys done?" Zhu Feng heard Kyle's words and asked with a strange look on his face, "Yes, what do you think?" Kyle laughed and said hurriedly, "No. No opinion." At this time, Zhu Mu was also a little speechless. He made things so formal, came to the old house, and looked for someone. "Now you patted my shoulder and told me that it was done. If they didn't say that they didn't believe it, I wouldn't believe it either." Seeing the scene in front of him, Zhao Yuanyang said to Zhu Mu, "Child, come on, Grandpa has something to say to you." After that, he walked out. Zhu Mu's heart was full of doubts. Zhao Yuanyang wanted to find him for something. What was it? Thinking about it, Zhu Mu followed with questions. But Zhu Feng didn't even look at him. At this time, he was still in excitement. It was great that he was not the head of the family. Zhu Feng would have more time in the future. He would think of a way to get Zhu Mu to the border, so that he could retire and travel the world with Zhao Yu. The other half of Zhu Mu followed Zhao Yuanyang and came to an empty room. He asked Zhao Yuanyang, "Grandpa, what's wrong?" Hearing Zhu Mu's words, Zhao Yuanyang shook his head and said to him, "I know you don't understand why you have to inherit the head of the family. What does it have to do with the emperor?" Zhao Yuanyang's words really touched Zhu Mu's heart. He really didn't understand why he had to be the head of the family to expand his power. He thought he didn't need any power. Besides, he didn't want to be the emperor. How many times have I said that he is not interested in the position of the head of the family? He is only interested in Sirona. After all, traveling around the world with Sirona is his ultimate goal. Seeing Zhu Mu lost in thought, Zhao Yuanyang smiled kindly, "Child, I will tell you this time why I must let you be the emperor. You have also seen the situation in our world. It has been in crisis, including the border issues a while ago. If you hadn't appeared in time, our world might have fallen into war and even been enslaved by others." Zhu Mu also knew what Zhao Yuanyang said. He went to the border to save his cheap father a while ago. He experienced all these personally, so he also understood the instability of the world. Zhu Mu said, "But what does this have to do with the emperor?" Zhao Yuanyang smiled slightly, then his expression became serious, and he said to Zhu Mu, "The people in our world have been divided for too long, and we need a common leader to unify our thoughts, so that we can be faster in future wars or development. And you are recognized by the people of the East and West continents. This is an opportunity for us to unite the world." Zhu Mu then asked, "What do you mean by luck? Can we let something as illusory as luck control us?" Zhu Mu's words made Zhao Yuanyang become serious, and he said to Zhu Mu, "Something like luck is not illusory, but does exist." There is nothing wrong with what Zhao Yuanyang said. It is precisely because of the existence of luck that Zhao Yuanyang became the chief of the East continent. It is also because of Zhao Yuanyang's lack of luck that he can only be the chief of the East continent and cannot become the emperor of the world. Zhao Yuanyang understood all these things, so he did not take another step forward and just became a chief. A chief like Zhao Yuanyang also has a huge amount of luck. Otherwise, he would not be able to suppress the people of a country. It is conceivable how great the luck of a human emperor is. Zhu Mu himself could not see it, but Zhao Yuanyang could see it. He could see that Zhu Mu's luck was so huge that he could not see the bottom at all, which clearly told Zhao Yuanyang that Zhu Mu had more luck than him. The luck of a chief was not as great as Zhu Mu's. It can only be said that Zhu Mu was the emperor of heaven. Once he was conferred the title by heaven, he would definitely be able to suppress the human race in the whole world. At this time, Zhao Yuanyang continued to say to Zhu Mu, "Child, the strength of a person is ultimately that of a person. You can't do everything yourself, but you have countless people following you, so it's not a problem." Listening to Zhao Yuanyang's words, Zhu Mu fell into deep thought again. He was used to being powerful alone and did not pay attention to these, but after hearing what Zhao Yuanyang said, it was indeed reasonable. If he really became the emperor of the human world, he could not do it himself, and he had to start building his own team. Zhu Mu cast his eyes on Zhao Yuanyang again, and Zhao Yuanyang saw Zhu Mu's eyes and understood Zhu Mu's thoughts. Zhao Yuanyang smiled with relief and said to Zhu Mu, "Let's go." Your father-in-law is here." Before Liang finished speaking, Kyle went directly into the house and nodded with Liang. He said, "Zumyu, do you understand what we mean? Although I don't understand what luck is, I know you are indeed qualified to be the leader of our entire world. This is what you should do. This is your mission. You can't shirk it." Hearing this, Zumyu suddenly became unhappy. Can't? No. What do you mean? Haven't you been beaten enough? You were so cowardly just now, and now you come to me to act 13 again? Chapter 434, The Mysterious King Die. Question mark, colon, comma, 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 comma. Clearing his mind, Kyle pretended not to hear Zumyu's words, and spoke again. "I have said everything I should say, think about it yourself." After that, he walked out without looking back. Zumyu saw Kyle leaving, and suddenly smiled. "This Kyle, he is so naughty. If you don't scold Kyle, Kyle will feel uncomfortable and must find something to scold." You see, Zumyu scolded him a few words, and he felt much better. You don't need to think about it to know that Kyle is in a very good mood now. Look at his steps. He is so happy that he can't even walk steadily. Kyle, who just wants to get out quickly, doesn't know what Zumyu is thinking. If he knew, he would definitely jump up in anger. "What do you mean I am looking for a scolding? I am so naughty, and my heart is so unhealthy. I just want to get away from this stinky boy as soon as possible. If possible, I don't want to see him in this life." Of course, Kyle didn't know what Zumyu was thinking at this time. He just wanted to run out quickly to avoid being with Zumyu. Let's not talk about whether it's embarrassing or not. It's just that this brat always chokes him. He can't stand it. Liang, who was standing aside, watched this scene with a smile on his face. His grandson's current strength is really unfathomable. As the same chief, he has dealt with Kyle a lot, and he knows what kind of person Kyle is best. If an ordinary person talks to Kyle like this, he might not know how he died. And Zumyu said this to Kyle. Not only did nothing happen, he also made Kyle speechless and walked away directly. This is enough to see Zumyu's strength. At least now Kyle dare not confront Zumyu head-on. Looking at Zumyu, his mood became better and better, and he became more determined in his heart. This child will definitely not live up to their expectations. He will lead the world to a better place and become a legend in the whole world. Thinking about it, Liang said, "Child, I have nothing to say. Let's go back." Zumyu heard what Liang said and nodded. He heard too many things today, and he needs to go back and sort them out. And there is one more important thing, that is to see who the powerful spiritual power in the ancestral hall belongs to. The head of the Zhu family has been replaced for 40 generations, but there is no record of the spiritual power. He clearly saw it in Zhu Feng's eyes just now, and Zhu Feng didn't know what this was. Now he can only explore it himself. Thinking of this, Zumyu hurriedly quickened his pace and returned to the ancestral hall. Zhu Feng is now very happy, and he doesn't want to care about anything else. Zhu Feng just wants to be happy, otherwise Zhao Yu is next to him now. He definitely wants to go out and drink for 3 days and 3 nights, but now Yu is next to him. How can he go out, saying that something happened at the border? If he has a little brain, he can't say that. There is no way. Just be happy here. As soon as Zumyu came back, he saw Zhu Feng dancing in the ancestral hall. He couldn't help but snorted in his heart. "You are happy now, but you will cry later. Dare to plot against me, then you must pay the price." Thinking of this, Zumyu said, "Dad, do you know what the spiritual power was just now?" Hearing Zumyu's words, Zhu Feng was stunned. "Spiritual power? What do you mean? Wasn't that the approval of the ancestors of the Zhu family? A token from heaven?" Zumyu has already spoken. If he doesn't know anything, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Zhu Feng, who pretended to know everything, cleared his throat and said seriously, "Oh, you mean that spiritual power? I also found it, but I haven't had time to look at it. Since you're curious, just check it out." After that, he walked aside and stopped talking. When Zumyu saw Zhu Feng's look, he knew it without thinking. This cheap old man definitely doesn't know anything. Pretending here, what are you pretending for? Will you die if you tell the truth? Can't you be a good man like me? Zumyu, who is down to earth and hard-working. Ignoring Zufeng, Zumuo patted the Pokemon ball on his waist, and Arceus suddenly jumped out. Zufeng, who had just walked aside, saw Arceus and his eyes lit up. He knew that every Pokemon on his son was good. The most mysterious one was the alpaca in front of him. Apart from anything else, just being able to flash this skill was enough to make him jealous. Imagine that during a battle, you flash behind the opponent and punch him directly. Would the opponent be confused? He was definitely confused, and it was exciting to think about it. Zumuo could also see Zufeng's expression. This cheap old man really had no choice. This really proved the saying, he is not good at anything and eats everything without leaving anything. Ignoring him, Zumuo said to Arceus, "Arceus, help me see if there are any elves nearby." Arceus nodded after hearing the order and began to close his eyes. After a while, Arceus opened his eyes and said to Zumuo, "There's a strange elf behind this pile of tokens. His mental power is very strong, but he keeps expressing kindness." Hearing this, Zumuo was certain that there was nothing wrong with his thinking. There really is an elf. At this moment, everyone saw a white light coming from behind the spirit tablet, and an elf resembling a hippopotamus walked out from behind the spirit tablet. Zumuo took a closer look. Wasn't the elf in front of him the Dai King who was famous for his wisdom? How could such a rare beast appear in the Zoo family? Just as Zumuo was looking at Dai King, Dai King was also looking at Zumuo. He was also stunned. This child was the first time he met him, and he could feel Zumuo's ability and super high mental strength. He didn't expect that he had just handed over the token, and then such a sudden words would be discovered. Chapter 435. Another old thing? Originally, the Slow King didn't plan to come out. Seeing the Zoo family like this, he felt that he had to come out. If he didn't come out, he would be easily dragged out by Zumuo. Seeing the figure of the Slow King, Zufeng was the most shocked at this time. He had been the head of the family for 20 years, but he didn't know that there was an elf in the Zoo family's old house. He was the head of the family in vain. In fact, if you think about it carefully, Zufeng really didn't go back to the old house very often, and this matter was not his fault. Zumuo was also stunned when he saw the Slow King. This Slow King did appear in the original world. Although the number of times was small, each time it played a big role. The Slow King is not common, but the Slow Beast is very common. If the Slow Beast carries the King's certificate and can walk on its legs after exchanging communications, because the Slow King is affected by the toxin, he has a genius mind. He can freely control his mental power. This is why the token just now can fall from the air by itself. All this is the ability of the Slow King. Seeing Zumuo in front of him, the Dai King who just came out said, "I know you are skeptical about my existence, but I can tell you clearly that I have existed since the Zoo family ancestral hall was just established." Hearing Dai King's words, Zumuo was indifferent. After all, how could a family that has been passed down for hundreds of years not have some trump cards? But Zufeng on the side didn't feel the same way. Zufeng only felt that his family head seemed to have been in vain for so many years. Why, when he was the family head, this stupid Dai King had no intention of showing up at all. The family head was passed to Zumuo, and you jumped out to take advantage of the situation. You don't take me, Zufeng, seriously. I, Zufeng, am more or less a decent person. You make me look very awkward like this, don't you understand? Thinking of this, Zufeng looked at Dai King with a face full of resentment. But then he thought, it's okay. Anyway, the current family head is not Zufeng. It was just passed to Zumuo. It was passed too timely. If Dai King jumped out when he was still the family head, it would really be a shame. Zumuo didn't doubt Dai King's words at all. Even with his eyes closed, he could guess that this Dai King had definitely been in the Zoo family ancestral hall for quite some time, just based on the fact that he had just handed the token to him and no one else was surprised at all. He could tell that the existence of this Dai King was absolutely reasonable. He was now eager to know some of the Zoo family's secrets. Just like the token of the head of the Zoo family, there must be secrets. Thinking of this, Zumuo said to Dai King, Dai King, I want to talk to you. I hope I can learn more about the Zoo family through you. After that, Zumuo cast his expectant eyes on Dai King. Without waiting for Dai Wang to speak, Zufeng said, This elf existed when the Zhu family ancestral hall was built. Our Zhu family ancestral hall was built by your great-grandfather. Your great-grandfather can be said to be a legendary figure. When the elves just appeared in our world, he seized the opportunity and made our Zhu family strong by taming a powerful elf. But, I remember that the elf of the great ancestor was not Dai Dai Wang. Hearing Zhu Feng's words, Dai Dai Wang smiled faintly and said to the Zhu family, "Indeed, the elf that the master put outside to wait for me was not me, but another elf. This is because my ability is more spiritual and rarely involves combat. If you say it too strongly, I am more like a military advisor." Hearing Dai Dai Wang's words, Zhu Feng immediately continued, "Then you tell me, the great ancestor made the Zhu family prosperous, so why did he disappear in the end?" After speaking, Zhu Feng's eyes became unusually serious. Not only Zhu Feng, but also the 7 sisters of the Zhu family became serious. The great ancestor can be said to be a legend of the Zhu family, but this person disappeared shortly after establishing the Zhu family. Is there any secret in this? After the disappearance of the Zhu family's great ancestor, the development of the Zhu family stagnated, which was undoubtedly bad news. After the disappearance of the Zhu family's great ancestor, the Zhu family searched frantically, but unfortunately, they didn't find him at all. In the end, the Zhu family's position had stabilized, and the Zhu family didn't continue to search. However, where did the Zhu family's great ancestor go? It has always been a mystery in the hearts of the Zhu family. Hearing Zhu Feng's words, Dai Dai Wang said with a smile, "I have guessed your question a long time ago. Why did the master leave the Zhu family?" It was not because of persecution by someone, but because everyone in the Zhu family relied on the master at that time, and he had no motivation. Seeing this situation, the master thought about it day and night, just to find a way to make the Zhu family revitalize themselves. The master hopes to see a Zhu family where everyone is like a dragon, not a Zhu family where he is the only one in power. That's why he disappeared strangely. In fact, the master did not disappear, but has been protecting the Zhu family in secret. Once an enemy that the Zhu family cannot solve appears, he will take action in secret, just to make everyone in the Zhu family like a dragon. Only in this way can the Zhu family prosper for a long time. Zhu Feng heard this and understood why the great ancestor suddenly disappeared, and if the highest fighting force of a family disappeared, then the family would definitely fall apart. But it is a coincidence that after the disappearance of the great ancestor of the Zhu family was not hunted down by other enemies, but watched the fire from the other side of the river. I am afraid that these people have been threatened by the great ancestor. After the disappearance of the great ancestor, the people of his family practiced hard, not for anything else, but to improve themselves and protect the Zhu family. This is exactly what the great ancestor of the Zhu family wanted to see. Thinking of this, a mystery that surrounded the Zhu family for 100 years suddenly fell apart. When Zhu Mu heard this, he understood that, indeed, when a family prospers, if the sense of crisis does not only follow the clan members, then the family will sooner or later fall apart. Thinking of this, Zhu Mu stopped thinking about this problem. He took out the family head's token and asked the king Dai Dai, "This token is definitely not that simple, right?" I took it in my hand and studied it myself, and found that its material is not any material I know. Hearing Zhu Mu's words, the king Dai Dai looked at Zhu Mu with appreciation. What he thought in his heart was indeed correct. He had only seen the demeanor of the child in front of him in the great ancestor of the Zhu family. The Dai Dai king only laughed, and then said, "You are right. The token in your hand is not just a token, it is a storage space. As long as you drop your blood on it, it will communicate with you and change into what you want." The Dai Dai king's words stunned everyone present. What? The family head's token also has a storage space. Chapter 436, The Legendary Nut Ring. At this moment, Zhu Feng didn't know what to say. After being the head of the family for 20 years, he didn't even get the token. This is not someone else's fault. After all, he inherited the head of the family when he fled. He didn't come back to get it, but what about later? It's not like I, Zhu Feng, haven't been back to the old house before, and you, the king of Dai Dai, didn't even fart. Now you tell me that the head of the family token contains a storage ring with a space inside. Why can't I, Zhu Feng, get any good things? Zhu Feng thought with tears in his eyes. Seeing this scene, Kyle on the side couldn't help but curse Zhu Feng in his heart as a SB. He didn't get any good things, but did a lot of dirty and tiring work. Thinking of this, Kyle couldn't help but laugh out loud. The atmosphere suddenly became very awkward. When Zhu Feng heard this laughter, he was immediately furious, and he looked at Kyle with murderous intent in his eyes. Kyle really felt uncomfortable. Why is his chi cultivation so bad now? Didn't we agree that he should not change his color even if Mount Tai collapses in front of him? This is the right level. Why can't you hold back your laughter over such a small matter? This won't do. Kyle, who was thinking about something, suddenly felt cold all over. No, why is it so cold in the summer? Thinking about it, he looked into the field and saw Zhu Feng's face was so gloomy that water could drip. Damn it, something bad has happened. This old calf is angry again. I want to be beaten. This thought flashed through Kyle's mind for the first time. The result was just as Kyle expected. Zhu Feng walked towards Kyle slowly at this time. Kyle said in a panic, "Brother, what happened? Why do you look so bad? If you have anything to say, tell your brother, don't keep it in your heart." As he spoke, Kyle stepped back involuntarily. At this time, Kyle didn't want to lose face like this. Everyone knew that he, Kyle, was a face-saving person. Now, he had to be beaten in front of so many people. How can I say this? Am I not a good person? Me, Kyle, the chief of the Western continent, was beaten by a man. How can I still get along? How can I still lead my brothers? But Zhu Feng didn't care about his thoughts at this time, and only heard Zhu Feng calmly say, "Kyle, it's nothing. I just want to talk to you about something." Kyle's heart, I'm not a fool. Even a fool can see that you want to beat me. I just can't beat you. But if I can beat you, can you stand in front of me and be arrogant? Dream on. Kyle then smiled awkwardly and said flatteringly, "Brother, we don't have to be so angry. I didn't laugh at you just now." Hearing Kyle's words, Zhu Feng also grinned and said, "Did I say you laughed at me?" After that, he put his arm around Kyle's shoulders and hugged him out of the ancestral hall. The people around him only felt that the scene in front of them was inexplicably familiar. When Kyle comes back later, will he say that there is a stone under his feet and he accidentally fell again? Zhu Mu looked at the scene in front of him and didn't want to see their business at all. He knew in his heart that his cheap father must be angry because of the ring in his hand. No, not angry. I regretted it so much that my intestines turned green. Ignoring Zhu Feng, Zhu Mu took out a knife and cut a hole on his finger. A drop of blood dripped on the token. I saw that the token of the patriarch suddenly floated in the air, emitting white light. It turned into a ring and flew directly back to Zhu Mu's hand. Zhu Mu saw the storage ring and immediately put his mental power into it. In an instant, a huge space appeared in Zhu Mu's mind. Zhu Mu could clearly feel that as long as he wanted, anything could be instantly stored in it. At this time, the voice of the dog system suddenly sounded in Zhu Mu's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Xumi ring. No reward, just want to congratulate the host. Hearing this voice, Zhu Mu's head was instantly full of black lines. Damn, dog system, it doesn't do any real work, but does such meaningless things. I need you to congratulate me. I'm pretty happy. I'm instantly unhappy when you say that. Zhu Mu cursed the system in his heart. But the system has not spoken since it just said a word. Zhu Mu always felt like he was punching cotton. Zhu Mu, who was originally in a good mood, was really unhappy after being messed up by the dog system. What if he was unhappy? Then he would vent his anger on his cheap dad and dear Uncle Kyle. What a coincidence. These two people are not in the house now. Zhu Hong, who was standing aside, saw Zhu Mu looking around and knew that this kid was definitely looking for his dad. Zhu Hong smiled and said to Zhu Mu, "Dao Mu, how big is the space of your Xumi ring?" Hearing Zhu Hong's words, Zhu Mu couldn't help but smile and said to Zhu Hong, "Aunt, this space ring is okay, just average, barely enough for me. It's not big, only 100 square meters, barely enough." This sentence was heard by Zhu Feng, who had just entered the ancestral hall. Originally, he was in a much better mood after communicating with Kyle. Now he heard Zhu Mu's words, 100 square meters. Let alone anything else. Having a Xumi ring is good, and you are pretending to be cool and saying that 100 square meters is barely enough? He was suddenly depressed. He once again hugged Kyle, who was rubbing his face while entering the house. Walking towards the door, Kyle jumped up instantly. His face was ashen, and he stood still. "What's going on? What do you mean? You just beat me up, and you want to beat me up again? Do you think I, Kyle, am really easy to bully?" Thinking of this, Kyle immediately broke free from Zhu Feng's hand and shouted loudly at Zhu Feng, "Zhu Feng, I don't know if I am a human being, but you are a real dog. How did I offend you? Tell me." Hearing Kyle's words, Zhu Feng didn't say anything, but just held Kyle's arms honestly and walked out forcefully. Kyle saw that this was not okay. If he continued like this, he would be easily killed by Zhu Feng. Thinking of this, he shouted loudly to Yu, "Sister-in-law, save me, brother." Yu, who was standing aside, saw the two people in front of her, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She knew Zhu Feng too well. If she didn't let him vent his anger, he would never give up. So Zhao Yu silently lowered her head and pretended not to hear. Seeing Zhao Yu like this, Kyle instantly understood that he was isolated and helpless again. He spread his body desperately, and let Zhu Feng pull him out. At this time, he felt so speechless. When the peak is beaten, you can't resist now, so you can enjoy it quietly. Chapter 437 I want to be the chief too, exclamation mark, question mark, comma, question mark, comma. As soon as he saw the wretched expression, he knew that he was definitely fantasizing about a better future. What kind of person is Zhu Mu that can make Zhu Feng so arrogant? Having made up his mind, Zhu Mu smiled evilly and said to everyone, "Ants, I am now the head of the Zhu family. Do you want to hear what I have to say?" Zhu Hong, who was standing aside, heard Zhu Mu's words and hurriedly said, "The head of the family is the head of the family. How can it be useless? Now as long as you issue the head of the family order, no one has the right to refuse." Zhu Mu, who was affirmed, had a serious expression at this moment and said to everyone in the Zhu family, "As the head of the Zhu family, I, Zhu Mu, should handle all kinds of family affairs. Unfortunately, due to my unfinished studies, I don't have much time to handle family affairs. I once again specially authorize Zhu Feng to be the acting head of the family to handle family affairs." Zhu Feng, who was still fantasizing about the future, heard Zhu Mu's words and fell to the ground in an instant. What does it mean? Acting head of the family? At this time, Zhu Feng really wanted to cry but had no tears. The good life was right in front of him, but now it was gone. When everyone saw Zhu Feng's expression, they burst into laughter instantly. This was interesting, especially Kyle, who laughed so loudly that he was afraid that others could not hear him. Zhu Feng felt that he could still struggle, but he only heard him say to Zhu Mu, "Son, your father has worked hard for half his life and fought for half his life. Can't you let me have a good rest?" Zhu Mu sneered and said to Zhu Feng, "Dad, this won't do. As the head of the family, I can't go back on my words. You can't change your orders every day, right?" Zhu Feng was about to get angry when he heard it. He looked at Zhu Mu, then looked at himself, and felt that he couldn't beat Zhu Mu. He could only suppress the evil fire in his heart and said to Zhu Mu, "Son, your father is tired. You can go to your aunt, your 7 aunts." Zhu Mu heard that this was not okay. "If you want to dump the stall on me, Zhu Mu, then be prepared to be retaliated." So, Zhu Mu shook his head and said with regret, "Dad, this won't do. I, the head of the family, have spoken. If you ask me to change the order now, wouldn't that mean you don't take my dignity as the head of the family seriously?" Hearing this, Zhu Feng could only hide aside silently and wipe away his tears secretly. The beautiful moments that he had thought of before are now all gone. "If I had known this would happen, why would I give you the position of head of the family? I would continue to be the head of the family and get a ring. Now there is nothing, and the free and easy life that I had dreamed of is gone." It's all tears to talk about it. Seeing Zhu Feng like this, Zhu Mu finally felt a little happy in his heart. As long as this cheap old man doesn't live comfortably, Zhu Mu will be satisfied. Thinking of this, Zhu Mu said to everyone, "Today's affairs are all over. Ants, let's go have a meal and celebrate." Hearing Zhu Mu's words, the 7 sisters of the Zhu family nodded. Even if Zhu Mu didn't say it, they would arrange it. After all, today is a big day, and it must be celebrated well. Congratulations to Zhou for successfully inheriting the position of head of the family. At this time, everyone in the Zhou family was very happy. Of course, Zhou Feng was not happy at all. He lost his wife and soldiers, so how could he feel comfortable? But there was no way to feel uncomfortable. Just bear it. There was another person who was in the same uncomfortable mood, and that person was poor Kyle. He said he was here to watch the ceremony, but he was beaten twice for nothing. Who would feel comfortable in this situation? The next day, a piece of news shocked the whole world. Zhou became the head of the Zhou family. The Zhou family members might not know, but who didn't know Zhou? Rather than saying that the Zhou family helped Zhou, it would be better to say that Zhou helped the Zhou family. At the same time, Zhao Yuanyang was preparing for a big event, waiting to give Zhou a surprise. Kyoto. In the conference room, Zhao Yuanyang said to the people around him, "Everyone, do you have anything to say about my abdication?" Hearing Zhao Yuanyang's words, a strong man said to Zhao Yuanyang, "Chief, you said you want to abdicate. We have no objection. After all, you have been tired for most of your life, and you should really have a good rest. But, you said you want to pass the chief to Zhou. How can this be possible? Zhou is so old, a kid who hasn't even grown all his hair. You can rest assured to hand over this position to him. We are not at ease." The other few people were silent, saying nothing, and there was no expression on their faces. The man who was speaking was the strongest competitor for the next chief. If there was no Zhou, he would have a great chance of getting the position of chief. Now Yuanyang told the man that he wanted to abdicate, which was good. The man agreed with both hands and feet. But if you said to pass the chief position to someone else, sorry, this man would definitely not agree. What did he work so hard for all these years? Wasn't it for the future to be able to sit in that position above thousands of people? But now, a stinky boy who hasn't even grown all his hair has jumped out. He wants to snatch what he is about to get. Do you really think I don't exist? Thinking of this, the man's anger became even stronger. He knew how much he paid for that position. Now Yuanyang, you are really saying these things to me and you really think I don't exist? Thinking about it, the man continued, I suggest that we choose a chief first. As for Zhou, I admit that the boy is very good. Let him be the next chief. Let Zhou have a good experience first. Otherwise, how can we convince the public? Zhao Yuanyang almost laughed when he heard this. No, Zhao Yuanyang, haven't abdicated yet. What you are saying now tells me that you are ready to inherit the chief. You really don't take me. Zhao Yuanyang, seriously, let's not talk about Zhao Yuanyang, just talk about that stupid big guy Kyle. He also fought his way out of the battlefield. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 438. I have all your evidence. Don't mention Zhao Yuanyang, who is obviously a scholar, but now he is being pointed at by someone. Can he bear it? Even if he doesn't study, he can't bear this anger. After all, Zhao Yuanyang is also a chief. Even an ordinary person has his own pride, let alone a chief above 10,000 people. At this time, Zhao Yuanyang's anger was a little uncontrollable, let alone whether Zhou is his grandson. Just talking about Zhou's contribution to the whole world, it is enough to become the chief, and even a chief is not worthy of Zhou's strength. What's more, Zhou also defeated the opposite world in the border war, which is equivalent to saving everyone in this world. Thinking about it, Zhao Yuanyang's eyes revealed a dangerous breath. The people on the side may also feel Zhao Yuanyang's state and lower their heads. Although the man can also feel it, he has been looking forward to it for so many years, and he has no way to give up. Still holding his neck and said, Chief, if you insist on passing the position to him, I won't accept it. After speaking, he held his neck, looking at Zhao Yuanyang. The general meaning is that if you don't accept it, you will kill me. Zhao Yuanyang saw that he didn't say much, but just glanced at him indifferently. He had already crossed him out in his heart. Poor unknown man. He is too good at making trouble, otherwise, he should wait obediently. Maybe Zhou will not want to be the leader when the time comes, so he can be the leader directly. But this child can't distinguish between good and bad things. He wants to make trouble after hearing some news. It's good to make such a fuss, and he will be ruined. He is also an unlucky child. Zhao Yuanyang saw that no one else spoke except this man, and he understood that this unlucky child was used as a gun by others without knowing it. Since he wants to be the first bird to stand out, Zhao Yuanyang can only kill the chicken to scare the monkey. Thinking in his heart, Zhao Yuanyang cast his eyes on this man. He said to him, "Okay, then I know. I haven't said it before. I have all the evidence of your violation of principles. Now you get ready and surrender." After that, Zhao Yuanyang ignored the stunned people, put his hands behind his back calmly, and walked out of the meeting room slowly. The strong man was a little confused. What's going on? Did I get this script wrong? Shouldn't I be the protagonist? Zhumyu, you are the protagonist. What am I? The man was a little confused now. As for whether his background was clean or not, why should he think about it? Could it be clean? Not to mention himself. Even the old guys sitting next to him were not clean. Thinking in his heart, the man walked out little by little as if he had lost his soul. Just as he walked to the door, a burly man stopped him. He said to him coldly, "Sir, we have found that you are suspected of illegal fundraising, embezzlement, etc. Please come with us." When the man heard this, deathly silence spread on his face. It seemed that he was really in trouble this time. Nothing more to say. The old man is still the best. This time he might be in danger. No, he can't compromise. There is still a glimmer of hope. Thinking in his heart, the man pushed the burly man in front of him away and ran towards Zhao Yuanyang's office. Although his body was strong enough, who was the man in front of him? He was the one who protected Zhao Yuanyang day and night. How could he make such a low-level mistake? Impossible. The burly man immediately reached out and grabbed the man in his hand. He said to him, "Sir, you still have something to solve. Please come with us." As he spoke, he carried the man out. Several people in the room heard the noise outside and all sat on the chairs without saying a word. Finally, an old man spoke, breaking the silence in the field. "Everyone, what should we do now? Should we sit and wait for death or go with the flow?" After saying that, he raised his head and looked at the people in front of him. The other old man, still lowered his head, but spoke, "What else can we do? Isn't that kid the answer Zhao Yuanyang gave us just now? Besides, the kid named Zhumyu is really good. I don't think there is any problem." "That's right, Zhumyu is okay. I think it's okay." After saying that, several people were silent again. The room fell into silence again. Zhao Yuanyang called Kelpo in his office. After a moment, a majestic voice came from the other side of the phone. "Chief, how is it? Is there something wrong?" The owner of this voice is Kyle. No matter what Kyle is like in front of Zhu Feng, in front of others, even in front of Zhao Yuanyang, he is always the chief of the Western continent. Hearing Kyle's words, Zhao Yuanyang smiled faintly and said, "Nothing happened. Now we need to proceed according to the plan. I will pass the chief title to him first, and then we will build momentum for him together, and then you can proceed." At this time, Kyle suddenly became hesitant and said to Zhao Yuanyang, "Chief, don't you think that Zhumyu, this stinky boy, will come back to cheat us after knowing this?" Zhao Yuanyang laughed when he heard it, and then said to Kyle, "It's okay. We are all for him. If this stinky boy gives him 10 courages, he still dares to call his grandfather." After saying that, he felt a burst of laughter in his heart. Kyle is a chief after all, but now he is afraid of Zhumyu to this extent. "I won't say anything. I'll laugh first." Kyle on the other side of the phone didn't know what Zhao Yuanyang was thinking. If he knew, he would definitely curse. "I'm scared." "Do you know why I'm scared? Yesterday, I went to watch the ceremony and was beaten twice by Zhumyu's father. Now, when I mentioned the word Zhu Feng, my calves are throbbing." Kyle shook his head helplessly and sighed. He can't blame him. He has sequelae from being beaten. What can he do? Now when he hears the names of Zhumyu and Zhu Feng, he turns around and wants to run. This father and son are really not from the same family. Kyle is Zhumyu's father-in-law. Now, this kid doesn't say anything to talk back and scold, making Kyle lose the dignity of a father-in-law. Other sons-in-law are all trembling when they go to see their father-in-law. They are embarrassed to sit down, but Zhumyu, when he sees him, He wants to go up and fight with him. Isn't it just bullying Zumu once when he hasn't grown up? Is it that bad for me? What a loving father and filial son. Not knowing what Kyle was thinking, Liu Yang continued, "Don't worry, nothing will happen. One of us is his grandfather, and the other is his father-in-law. He won't hate us." Zumu, really? Are you sure you saw Zufeng? That's my dad. Are you asking him if he's happy now? Are you kidding? If his dad doesn't work, what's the use of his grandfather and father-in-law, especially the father-in-law? He has long disliked him. Chapter 439. The knife is still sharp. The sword reveals frost. Liu Yang then said to Kyle, "I have dealt with everything here. Now it depends on whether there is any objection from your side." Kyle sorted out his mentality and said majestically again, "Someone objects. Then they have to see if the knife in my hand is sharp enough." Hearing Kyle's words, Liu Yang smiled and said to Kyle, "Okay, I'll wait for you to give me good news." After that, he hung up the phone. Kyle on the other side heard a busy tone coming from the phone. He didn't say anything, but said to the people around him, "Gather some people, I want to hold an emergency meeting." Then, Kyle walked out of the office alone. The secretary next to him couldn't help but feel puzzled when he saw Kyle's appearance. As Kyle's personal secretary, he knew what kind of person Kyle was the best. He also knew Kyle's temper. Although Kyle was an easygoing person, he had never said the kind of words just now. Since Kyle became the chief of the Western continent, Kyle has always been extremely easygoing to the outside world, although he can inadvertently reveal his majesty from time to time. But he has never said that he would use a knife like he did just now. The secretary didn't have time to think about it. Thinking of what Kyle had just said, he quickly picked up the phone, found a number and dialed it. He said to the phone, "Announce Chief Kyle's order. Now all senior executives are required to go to the conference room. Chief Kyle wants to hold a meeting." After saying that, he hung up the phone. He followed Kyle out. A group of senior executives, after receiving Kyle's order, hurried to the conference room without stopping. Although Chief Kyle has always been easygoing to the outside world, people with memories still remember that Kyle killed people everywhere in the Western continent. Kyle was not the one who could be the chief back then, and he didn't want to be the chief. Unfortunately, although he didn't want to be the chief, the successor of the chief saw that Kyle's strength was too strong, resulting in no one being able to command him. So, he began to target Kyle everywhere, trying to control Kyle, a powerful warrior. After persuading him to no avail, he even began to kidnap Kyle's family, which made Kyle, who wanted to give in everywhere, unbearable. In a rage, Kyle took his subordinates and killed the management of the Western continent from top to bottom. For a time, the managers of the Western continent were killed and there was no one to manage. This caused the people of the Western continent to live in dire straits. Kyle, who was unwilling to bear it, finally took his subordinates to fill in among the managers of the Western continent. This stopped the disintegration of the Western continent, and Kyle naturally became the chief of the Western continent. Kyle eventually became the person he hated the most. The memory of that period of time is always in these high-level people. They are the survivors of the massacre. This also made them form a solid idea in their hearts that Kyle's orders must not be violated. If they are asked to go to war, they will leave with the people around them without saying a word. But if you ask them to fight Kyle, then I'm sorry, they are Kyle's most loyal supporters. They have no way to refuse. In their hearts, you can poke the sky, and there are tall people to support it when the sky falls. But if you insist on fighting Kyle, then I'm really sorry. They will never help you with anything. No, they can help you collect your body after being killed by Kyle. The senior executives who received the order did not dare to stay for a moment. They quickly put down their work and ran to the meeting room. As soon as they entered the meeting room, they saw Kyle sitting alone in his seat. He was lost in thought. Seeing Kyle like this, the group of people were half disappointed. No way. Chief Kyle is going to wield the butcher knife again. He is going to kill people. Who can stand this? He hasn't had enough good days. Thinking of this, a brave senior executive wiped the cold sweat from his forehead with trembling, and said to Kyle weakly, "Chief Kyle, are you in trouble? You can talk to us. Although we can't help you get rid of your unhappiness, we can still talk to you." After that, He didn't dare to say anything else, but looked at Kyle with expectation. Kyle, who was originally thinking about what to do if Zoomu knew about this. He would never believe what Zhao Yuanyang said. If Zoomu didn't cheat him, he would dare to write his name backwards. He thought he was thinking more clearly at this time. A more thorough look. If you don't believe me, I'll analyze it for you. Look, Zufeng is Zumu's father, right? What is Zufeng like now? How miserable is his experience? That's really sad to hear and to see. It's not easy to get the position of the head of the family out, which is definitely a happy thing. But now, how miserable. Not only does he have to do the work of the head of the family, but he can't even enjoy the benefits of the head of the family, and he is commanded by his own son. Don't you think it's miserable? Anyway, Kyle is fair. He thinks Zufeng is quite miserable. Having such a son is really unlucky for 8 lifetimes. Kyle himself has such a son. He definitely dares to say that this kind of bastard is a filial son. Beating him 8 times a day is not enough. Thinking of this, Kyle was lucky. Fortunately his Shirona has always been an obedient baby since childhood. He never has to worry about it, although she was abducted by Zoomu, the stinky boy. He dares to say that Shirona is still a good child who listens to her father. When Kyle mentioned his daughter who made him so proud, he was delighted. Aren't you awesome, Zufeng? You've always bullied me, but what about now? Where's your awesomeness back then? Of course, Kyle now automatically ignored the fact that Zufeng had beaten him twice in a row. After all, being beaten was not a glorious response. It was too embarrassing, so he could only clear his memory. Whenever he mentioned the name Zufeng, he couldn't help but recall in his mind how he had to hide behind Jiayu when he was forced by Zoomu to watch the ceremony 2 days ago, looking pitiful. Thinking of this, Kyle smiled. He didn't know that it was this smile that made the group of senior executives feel relieved. He smiled. Chief Kyle smiled. The man who just spoke was the most excited at this moment. Look, I'm still awesome. Chief Kyle, who was originally angry and unhappy, looked at him now after my persuasion. He smiled so happily, he couldn't help but think so. The people around him looked at him with admiration. He didn't show his true colors before, but now he discovered it. He is awesome. With just a few words, Chief Kyle was happy. No matter what happened, at least these people's lives were saved. As for what they were called here for, as long as they didn't die, it didn't matter. Chapter 440. They are all smart people. Kyle cleared his throat, returned to his majestic appearance just now, and said to the group of people, "Since you're here, please sit down. I have been waiting for you for a long time. I have something to discuss with you." Kyle's words made everyone stunned. What's the situation? Wasn't everything fine just now? Why is it so serious now? Brother, don't make trouble. We are afraid. At this moment, the inner drama of this group of people is extremely rich. Life, isn't it just ups and downs? Now the hearts of this group of people are once again in their throats. The man who just spoke was even more uncomfortable. No, brother, I thought it was the beginning of life, but I didn't expect that it was just the peak of my life. Thinking of this, the man wanted to cry. Kyle, who was standing aside, saw the look of the man in front of him and was very puzzled. I didn't say anything. Why are you ready to cry? Ignoring him, Kyle sorted out his thoughts and said to the group of people, "It's nothing big to call you here today. I just want to ask you what you think of Zoomu." Originally in Kyle's mind, this group of people talked a lot, argued, and drank, but the state of the group of people in front of him was obviously not what he thought. One by one, like an ostrich, lowered his head and said nothing. It seemed that he didn't hear Kyle's words at all, which made Kyle very confused. If Kyle was thinking about it now, this group of people would definitely curse. Trash Kyle, if you know anything, just say it. If you want us to praise Zoomu, we will praise him severely, but don't give it to us. What do we know? You are Zoomu's father-in-law, and you are asking us how Zoomu is now. How do we know what you mean? What if you don't want your daughter to leave Zoomu? If we praise it severely, wouldn't that be a direct blow? You will die without knowing how you died. The most rational thing to do now is to say nothing and ask nothing. A man's silence is golden. We have the right to remain silent. Thinking in their hearts, the group of people lowered their heads even more. Kyle was really confused at this time. Something was wrong. Didn't you read the script? At this time, you should praise me. Thinking about it, Kyle said to the man who had just spoken, you, tell me, what do you think? After saying that, he cast his eyes on the man. At this time, the man really wanted to cry but had no tears. Just now, he was just rude and talked nonsense. Now it's good, he has successfully trapped himself, and he can't even run away. But now there is no way, he can only say it, whether he lives or dies, it depends on this boasting. Anyway, Zumu is Kyle's son-in-law after all, so let's praise him first. Thinking about it, he said to Kyle tentatively, Chief Kyle, I think Zumu is a good kid. As he spoke, his voice became smaller and smaller, and in the end, he could not hear his voice. He raised his head slightly and glanced at Kyle. He found that Kyle's face did not change at all. At this time, he was really complaining. Chief Kyle, you are my real father, okay? Just give me a hint, even if you frown, don't be expressionless. Thinking of this, the man made up his mind and said to Kyle, Chief Kyle, I feel that this child is good. From the various performances of this child and his behavior on the battlefield, I can see that this child is good. After that, he shut his mouth and said nothing. Kyle, who was sitting on the chair, raised his head at this time and looked at this person expressionlessly. He nodded lightly and continued to ask the people behind him, what do you think? At this time, the group of people heard the conversation between Kyle and the man, and they had a general idea in their hearts. No matter what, the man at least had nothing to do after praising Zumu, so let him go. So, the words I feel that he is good, this child is good, and I am the same rang in Kyle's ears. Hearing this, Kyle smiled slightly. This group of people is not bad, and they are quite reasonable, knowing what to say at what time. Thinking of this, Kyle said to everyone, okay, since everyone feels that Zumu is a good kid, I've thought about it. When the opportunity comes, I will pass the position of chief to him. Kyle's words shocked everyone present. Everyone opened their mouths wide, as if they had heard something earth-shattering. In fact, this news was earth-shattering in their eyes. Chief Kyle actually wanted to pass the position of chief to Zumu. My God, they were relieved again in their hearts. Fortunately, they had a conversation just now, otherwise, they might not have the chance to hear this news now. Thinking of this, the man opened his mouth again and said, Chief Kyle, we think your decision is extremely wise. We all know the performance of Zumu on the battlefield. Now, letting him be the chief of our western continent is indeed the best result, not to mention that Zumu is your son-in-law. We fully agree. After saying that, he looked at Kyle with expectation. Hearing this, Kyle looked at the man in silence. Although there was nothing wrong with what he said, why did he want to beat him so much? Forget it, I'll let him go this time because he said something good for Zumu. The man at this moment still looked at Kyle with a smile on his face, not knowing that just now, he had been hovering on the line between life and death. But he didn't know that he was still looking forward to the future. Now he felt that he could perfectly guess the thoughts of the superiors, which would be a great help for his future. Seeing the performance of the group of people in front of him, Kyle couldn't help but sigh. You still understand my heart. It would be great if those people in the past understood my heart. Hearing Kyle's words, the people on the side broke out in cold sweat. That's right, the group of people who didn't understand your thoughts had already disappeared in a previous purge. Is it easy for us to survive until now? Thinking of this, the group of people suddenly felt a trace of grief and indignation in their hearts. Kyle didn't know what these people were thinking. He just felt that his teaching was good. He didn't know that it was the past that scared these people. Even if he knew what would happen, in his eyes, anyone who disobeyed his orders really had no need to exist. Thinking in his heart, Kyle smiled kindly at the people in front of him and said, okay, since you have no opinions, if you have any, you must raise them, otherwise, it makes me look like a dictator. After saying that, he looked at everyone expectantly, as if he really needed some opinions. When the group heard Kyle's words, they couldn't help but curse in their hearts. You can still raise opinions. Anyone who raises opinions now has 2 meters high grass on his grave. Chapter 440. Let's not talk about Kyle's affairs here. At this time, Zumu really felt exhausted physically and mentally. Chapter 441. going to the secret realm again? While Kyle was paving the way for Zoomu, Zoomu on the other side was not so busy. On the contrary, he was unusually leisurely at this time. Although he was cheated by his father before, according to Zoomu's character, his cheap father did not take advantage of him at all. On the contrary, he lost both his wife and his soldiers. He was blackened by Zoomu. I guess I don't know where the cat is crying now. Lying quietly on the old chair, basking in the sun leisurely, Zoomu had too many things to do in the past 2 days. It's not easy to relax now. Originally, Zoomu should have lived a good life with Shirona at this time, but the weather was not good. As an obedient and good child, Shirona must strictly abide by the school discipline and go to school every day. Zoomu can only stay at home at this time. Don't ask why Zoomu doesn't need to go to class. Zoomu has been invincible in the world, so he still needs to go to class. Who is teaching whom? He goes to school to listen to a group of noobs tell him how to fight. Zoomu has fought more battles than they drink water. Now you want a god of war to listen to a soldier's lecture? Sorry, Zoomu can't do it. That's why Sirona went to class obediently, while Zoomu lay at home leisurely. The sun shone on Zoomu's face, and Zoomu fell asleep leisurely. Just when Zoomu was sleeping soundly, a voice sounded in his ear. Zoomu, you are also the head of the family. How can you be so lazy? The person who spoke was none other than Zoomu's dear aunt, Zulu. Zoomu, who was just awakened from his sleep, was a little confused. What's going on? Am I still dreaming? How did my aunt find this place? I must be dreaming. I have been cheated by my family these 2 days, and now even my family is sleeping. No, I have to slow down. Thinking of this, Zoomu, who didn't take it seriously, closed his eyes again. This scene is too terrible. Zoomu wants to continue sleeping for a while to dispel the unhappiness in his heart. Zulu, who was beside Zoomu, saw that he had been woken up by her and closed his eyes again. Zulu felt helpless. This little Mu is good in everything, but he is too lazy. Thinking of this, Zulu patted Zoomu and said loudly in his ear, "Zoomu, wake up, I'm here." Zoomu, who was woken up again, saw Zulu in front of him. This time, he finally confirmed that the person in front of him was not someone else, but his aunt. It seems that he was not dreaming just now. At this time, Zoomu was full of helplessness. What kind of person is this? I finally rested and wanted to spend my own peaceful time. But what? My aunt chased me home. Zoomu, who was a little depressed, stood up from the chair, stretched his waist, and said lazily to Zulu, "Aunt, why didn't you teach the students today and come to my place?" Zulu rolled her eyes at Zoomu, and then said, "As the head of the Zoo family, how can you lie here all day long? It just so happens that I have something here, come and help me." Zoomu heard, "What's the matter? I just took a break. How come I end up lying here all day?" Just when Zoomu was thinking about it, he suddenly thought of something wrong. Thinking about it, Zoomu asked Zulu, "No, Aunt, what did you tell me to do?" Hearing Zoomu's words, Zulu sighed and said to Zoomu, "The school organized freshmen to go to the secret realm for trial, which was originally a good thing, but recently I heard that the secret realm is unstable and prone to danger, plus Shirona is in it, so I thought of you." After saying that, Zulu looked at Zoomu with hope. Hearing that Shirona was in it, Zoomu's eyes changed instantly. If Shirona went, Zoomu would have to go this time. If something happened to Shirona, Zoomu would not know where to cry. Thinking of this, Zoomu said to Zulu, "Shirona is going to? Then I'll go with you." Hearing Zoomu's words, Zulu was happy. "I know you, kid. If I don't say Sirona is there, Zoomu will never say anything. Neither go nor move." Now that Sirona is going, Zoomu can't be indifferent. Seeing that Zoomu has agreed, Zulu was happy. Now, at least the safety of the group of freshmen is guaranteed. So, Zulu said to Zoomu happily, "Okay, Zoomu, let's go." After that, he led the way out. Hearing Zulu's words, Zoomu was stunned. What's the situation? Go now? Thinking about it, seeing that Zulu has already walked out, Zoomu can't stay any longer, and hurriedly keep up with Zulu's pace. Zoomu, who has been walking with Zulu for a long time, is muttering in his heart, "Really, my aunt walks too slowly. If it were me, I would have asked Arceus to teleport over. Is it necessary to walk step by step now? Before Zoomu finished thinking, a crisp voice sounded in Zoomu's ears. Zoomu, you're here. Hearing this, Zoomu came back to his senses. The person in front of him was none other than Zoomu's cute little Shyarona. Shyarona was very excited when she saw Zoomu. Although she saw Zoomu every day, it was a pleasant surprise that the man she loved came to accompany her to class. After Shyarona called Zoomu, she walked directly to Zoomu's side, grabbed his hand, and her face was full of a happy smile. Everyone who saw this scene automatically ignored the actions of the two. Who dared to say anything? Who dared not eat this dog food? Even if you don't eat it, it will be stuffed into your mouth. But if you have the ability not to eat it, it's okay. The key is that you don't have the ability, so you can only swallow this dog food. You can't say anything. So, everyone can only pretend that they didn't see the two people like this. Everyone looked forward and pretended not to see anything. The best way to not eat dog food is to pretend that you can't see it. This scene is deeply felt by everyone. Seeing the two people being so close, Zulu cleared her throat and said to them, Zoomu, Shyarona, you two are done. Pay attention to your image. Hearing Zulu's words, Shyarona blushed, but she still didn't let go of Zoomu's hand. Seeing this scene, Zulu, who was a little helpless, supported her forehead with her hand. She said to Zoomu, Zoomu, let's go quickly. If we are late it will be dark. Zoomu listened to Zulu's words and nodded. No problem. It's just a secret place. I love going there the most. Chapter 442, Loving Dogs? Seeing Zoomu answering her, Zulu smiled and said seriously to the freshmen around her, this blood pool secret realm in front of us exists as a trial site. It is extremely dangerous. I hope that all students can always follow me and Zoomu. After that, he led everyone into the blood pool secret realm. Zoomu on the side saw Zulu say this and smiled helplessly. He really didn't come here to protect these freshmen. If he hadn't seen his Shyarona in it, he would definitely not move a single place for a day. But Zulu had already told Zoomu that during this experience, as Shyrona's boyfriend, he should show his boyfriend power at this time. Thinking of this, Zoomu took Shyrona's hand and stepped into the secret realm. Seeing the appearance of the secret realm, Zoomu really felt that it would be a waste if the secret realm was destroyed. Who gave Zoomu the title of a secret realm destroyer? Just when Zoomu was stunned, Zulu on the side spoke again. Everyone, please be safe. This time, the task is to reasonably defeat an elite elf. Of course, Zoomu and Sirona cannot take action. When everyone heard this, they thought that if Zoomu and Sirona did not take action, the difficulty would rise sharply. But after thinking carefully, it is true that if Zoomu and Sirona took action, not to mention an elite monster, even if a mythical beast came, Zoomu and Sirona could single-handedly kill it. When Zoomu, who was standing aside, heard this, he was immediately happy. This relationship is great. He didn't want to take action in the first place, but this ant is quite understanding. It gave him a lot of leisure time. Thinking of this, Zoomu slapped the elf ball on his waist, and Lugia's huge body appeared on the field again. At this time, when everyone saw Zoomu's Lugia, their eyes were immediately filled with envy. Who doesn't want to have such a charming mythical beast? It's a pity that they don't deserve it without the protagonist template. Lugia, who suddenly appeared, was a little surprised. Is this going to fight? Thinking of this, Lugia immediately began to look around, wanting to see if there were any enemies around. What frustrated him was that after looking around for a week, he found that they were all non-hostile people. At this moment, Zoomu patted him and asked him, what are you looking at? Don't you understand the identity of your mount? Hearing Zoomu's words, Lugia lowered his head in frustration, and came out to fight with joy. But he didn't expect to do his old job again. Seeing Lugia's appearance, Zoomu was happy, hugged Sirona's waist, jumped on Lugia, and patted his head. He said to him, fly up. Hearing Zoomu's words, Lugia had no way, but what else could he do? Fly. Listen to Zoomu, live well. Seeing the eyes of this group of people full of envy, Zulu on the side smiled helplessly. This group of people is really pitiful. People of the same age as Zoomu. When they were still studying hard, Zoomu was already able to single-handedly brush the beast. Not to mention the battlefield, These have nothing to do with them. Zumu has already become proficient. Thinking of this, Zulu suddenly found that she couldn't think anymore. If she thought about it, the children in front of her were really no match for Zumu. So, Zulu said to everyone, "Okay, let's not talk about anything else. You all understand the mission, right?" Then, one sentence after another of understanding sounded in her ears. Zulu nodded with relief and said, "Then I will find an elite level elf for you. Be prepared for battle." After that, Zulu walked straight forward. Seeing Zulu wanted to leave, Zumu also wanted to follow. But Zulu, who had been observing Zumu for a long time, saw it and said to Zumu seriously, "You don't have to come with me. Your current mission is to protect these freshmen." After that, he walked away without looking back. Hearing Zulu's words, Zumu shrugged helplessly at Shirona and said, "I knew that the matter of asking me to come here would never be so simple." Shirona looked at Zumu's appearance and laughed. Looking at Zumu, he said, "Zumu, that's because you are so powerful. Your combat power is almost top-notch anywhere." After saying that, he looked at Zumu with admiration. Zumu, who was praised by Shirona, felt extremely satisfied. Looking into Shirona's eyes, he said affectionately, "That's because you are by my side. You are my greatest helper. It is because of your ability that I can improve my ability." A group of people around were watching the two of them constantly spreading dog food in the sky, and they were about to vomit. As if sensing the state of the people below, Zumu said to Shirona in a particularly cooperative manner, "Shirona, tell me, do you love me too?" Shirona knew Zumu's bad taste, and followed suit, saying, "Of course, I must love you." Everyone below was looking forward to Zulu's return. They had never felt so eager to see Professor Zulu. Finally, in everyone's thoughts, Zulu ran back and shouted to everyone around him, "The opponent is here, everyone, get ready to fight." Hearing Zulu's words, everyone felt that they had never heard such beautiful words before. Just when they were stunned, they saw a gray elf with 4 hands rushing towards them. When Zumu saw this elf from above, he immediately understood the ability of this elf. This elf called Gwili is a very powerful elf. When fighting, he can quickly move his 4 arms and use punches or hand knives from all angles without stopping. At this time, the people below also reacted and recognized this elf instantly. After all, they had to learn in school. So, the voices of releasing elves came out from everyone's mouth. "Come out, Pikachu." 100,000 volts. "Bulbasaur, come out." "Parasitic seed." Dot. Everyone reacted and quickly released their own elves. More than 20 elves appeared in front of them. When Gwili was about to rush in front of everyone, a series of skills were directly shot at Gwili. Gwili dodged most of the skills in an instant, but there were still a few skills that hit Gwili. Zumu in the sky saw the scene in front of him and slapped his forehead with his hand. "Look, this is the difference between ordinary people and the protagonist. People who don't have the protagonist template have a hard time doing anything. With this strange strength, if Zumu hits him, it will only take a second. But what about this group of people in front of him? Dozens of people. It's so hard to fight a strange strength." Zumu felt that he was about to lose control. Just such a rookie, with only 20 skills, and didn't hit many. Chapter 443, Huge Gap. If this is a skilled trainer, he can't let his Pokémon skills be idle. But the group of people in front of him just use their skills randomly, and they don't seem to have any deep thinking. Zumu slapped his forehead, but he couldn't say anything, otherwise it would disrupt the meaning of this trial. Thinking of this, Zumu forced himself to resist the urge to take action and looked at the people in the field in agony. At this time, the people in the field were fighting fiercely. Compared with Zumu's leisure, they were busy sweating, but no one said they were tired. After all, in their hearts, Zumu was indeed everyone's idol. In front of their idol, how could they not try their best? And the strange power in the field was also beaten out of anger at this time, and saw a yellow-haired man directing his Pikachu. Just now, it was this Pikachu's 100,000 volts that hit the strange power hard, and the strange power was a little painful. Seeing that the Pikachu was still firing at full power and firing skills, the strange power was extremely unhappy. At this time, Strange Power saw that Pikachu was still using skills. Although he was thick-skinned and more resistant to beating, The damage of this Pikachu was magic damage, and his magic resistance was low. Thinking of this, Strange Power made up his mind that he had to kill this Pikachu anyway, so that he could slowly deal with the remaining elves. So Strange Power rushed directly towards Pikachu, and each of his forearms made a move, trying to give Pikachu a hard blow. Zumu, who was watching from the sky, muttered to himself, "If this encounters Pikachu, there is no need to guess. Pikachu should fall to the ground directly and lose its combat effectiveness." As expected by Zumu, Strange Power rushed up directly, grabbed Pikachu, and the remaining three hands swung at Pikachu fiercely. The yellow-haired man on the side saw this scene and shouted to Pikachu, "Pikachu, dodge!" Unfortunately, Pikachu was now caught in Strange Power's hand, and there was no room for resistance at all, and was directly attacked by Strange Power. He screamed and was thrown out by the strange force, lying limp on the ground. Seeing Pikachu like this, the yellow-haired man shouted loudly, "Pikachu!" Pikachu, who was lying on the ground, did not respond to him at all, and lay quietly on the ground. Seeing this scene, the yellow-haired man shed tears, thinking of the time when he trained with Pikachu in the past. His heart suddenly hurt. He was now worried that Pikachu lying on the ground would really leave him. Every trainer's Pokémon has a deep friendship with the trainer, and it can even be said to be a family relationship. Now tell him that his relatives are about to leave him. He can't control his emotions at all. At this time, Zulu on the side shouted to Zumu on Lugia, "Zumu, help him, don't let him be in danger." Hearing Zulu's words, Zumu nodded, slapped the Pokeball on his waist, and saw Celebi fly directly out of the Pokeball and stand steadily on Lugia. Zumu saw Celebi and said to her, "Celebi, heal that Pikachu." Celebi, who had just come out, shouted happily, "Robbie, okay, watch me." After saying that, he jumped off Lugia and ran to Pikachu's side. A white light came out of Celebi's hand. In a moment, Pikachu, who was lying on the ground, slowly jumped up from the dying state. The yellow-haired man who saw that Pikachu was suddenly fine became more excited and hugged Pikachu in his arms. He burst into tears and saw the yellow-haired Pikachu crying, and comforted him in his arms. He kept calling Pika Pika. Seeing the appearance of the yellow-haired man, Zumu, who was standing on Lugia, smiled with relief. If you want to become a powerful trainer, you must treat Pokémon as family members. Only in this way can both parties become more tacit. Seeing the scene in front of him, Zulu couldn't help but nodded, thinking, although these children are not so strong, they are all excellent trainers, and they love elves. They regard elves as their own relatives. Thinking of this, Zulu saw that the battle of the people in the field was a little difficult, and couldn't help but say to them, "Don't fight alone, you have to pay attention to cooperation." Hearing Zulu's words, the people on the field couldn't help but start to try to cooperate. Some elves on the field began to try to control the actions of the monster, and the others who attacked tried to find the weakness of the monster to kill it with one blow. Of course, some of their plans were delusional. As an elite-level elf, the monster has a natural restraint and strength, and the thick skin and flesh of the monster are also very good. Therefore, their battle became more and more difficult. The monster in the field seemed extremely irritable under the constant attacks of everyone. Although these attacks seemed to him like tickling, the constant harassment also made him very unhappy. So, the monster on the field roared angrily, emitting red light all over his body, and his body size continued to grow in his roar. Seeing this kind of monster, everyone seemed a little overwhelmed. Zumu, who was on Lugia, also felt something was wrong when he saw this scene. He was well informed and naturally knew that the monster in front of him was Dynamaxing. Originally, the monster could be Dynamaxed, but he did not have the ability to Dynamax himself. Could it be that Cheng Wujitai was nearby? Zumu, who was full of doubts in his heart, finally took action at this moment. If he did not take action, the people in the field would not be able to defeat the Dynamaxed monster. So, Zumu directly summoned Greninja and said to him, "Greninja, you go and deal with that monster, and make a quick decision." After receiving Zumu's order, Greninja shouted, and then rushed towards the monster. "Cool, master, just wait and see." The people in the field were still confused and had not yet reacted, and saw a frog rushing directly towards the monster. Before the monster reached him, a wind-style super-large water shuriken appeared in his hand. When it just reached him, it smashed towards the monster. The people in the field only saw that the monster, who was just so arrogant, fell directly to the ground after being attacked by Greninja. At this moment, they finally understood how far they were from Zoomu. More than 20 of them fought against the monster for a long time, but the monster was fine. However, as soon as Zoomu's spirit came on the field, it knocked the monster down with just one move. Chapter 444. Something strange happened. Killed instantly, and let the strange force have no defense. They were all shocked by the scene in front of them, but Zoomu didn't care about them at this time, but walked straight to Zulu and said to Zulu, "Aunt, take them back first. I'll take care of something. This strange force has become extremely powerful for no reason. I feel something is strange." Seeing Zoomu's serious look, coupled with Zoomu's words, Zulu didn't doubt it at this time. Nodding to Zoomu, turned around and said to everyone in the field, "Everyone, get ready to go back with me. There is a problem in the Blood Pool secret realm. For your safety, everyone retreat." After that, Zulu led everyone out of the secret realm, and Shirona on the side was full of reluctance. Zoomu smiled and said to Shirona, "Shirona, don't worry, I won't be in trouble." Hearing Zoomu's words, Shirona said with a worried look, "Then you should also pay attention to safety." Although she knew that according to Zoomu's strength, he would never have any problems, Shirona still couldn't help but worry. Seeing this, Zoomu nodded. Seeing Zoomu agreed, Shirona looked at Zoomu reluctantly, and then followed Zulu out of the secret realm. Seeing everyone walk out of the secret realm, Zoomu muttered in his heart, "The elves themselves cannot be Gigantamaxed, so the Gigantamax of this monster is strange. And the only elf that can make the elves Gigantamax is Wugitana. Could it be that Wugitana is nearby?" Thinking in his heart, Zoomu's mind moved, and he summoned Arceus directly. He said to Arceus, "Arceus, teleport to Wugitana's location." Arceus, who received Zoomu's order, teleported directly according to the coordinates he left on Wugitana. At this time, Wugitana was sleeping leisurely. Suddenly, a white light flashed in front of her eyes, and she saw Zoomu suddenly appeared beside him. Wugitana was startled. The child was sleeping just now. He didn't do anything. Why did Zoomu suddenly come here? Thinking about it, Wugitana asked Zoomu, "Zoomu, how come you have time to come to see me, and so suddenly?" "You scared me. Why didn't you tell me in advance?" Hearing Wugitana's words, Zoomu smiled awkwardly. I really forgot." So abruptly appearing next to the girl was a little anxious. Thinking about it, Zoomu smiled awkwardly, and quickly changed the subject and said to Wugitana, "I have something to ask you here. Have you helped other Pokemon to Gigantamax recently?" Zoomu's words made Wugitana confused. She said puzzledly, "No, I haven't moved here recently. I haven't been anywhere." After saying that, she looked at Zoomu curiously, and then said, "What's wrong? Some Pokemon can Gigantamax, or rely on their own abilities?" Wugitana's words made Zoomu even more confused. Wugitana did not use her own abilities, so how did the strange force achieve Gigantamax? So, Zoomu once again said to Wugitana, "That's strange. Just now, I was in a secret realm and saw a monster that could actually Dynamax by its own ability." "What? Dynamax by its own ability?" Wugitana shouted in disbelief when she heard Zoomu's words. Zoomu nodded seriously. Seeing Zoomu's serious look, Wugitana confirmed that Zoomu was not joking. So, she also said to Zoomu seriously, "I really didn't give this ability to other elves, and I haven't seen other elves recently." Zoomu nodded and said to Wugitana, "It's okay if it's not you, then I'll go investigate and see what's going on." After saying that, he was about to sit on Arceus and teleport back. Wugitana, who was standing aside, saw Zoomu was about to leave, and hurriedly said, "Wait a minute. I'll go with you." Zoomu glanced at Wugitana, then nodded. He took Wugitana back to the Blood Pond secret realm, surprised to find that when he left just now, the body of the strange force was still there, but now the body of the strange force has disappeared. Seeing the scene in front of him, Zoomu felt that this matter was not simple. Wugitana said to Zoomu, "Zoomu, "Where is the body of the strange force you just mentioned?" Zumu said to Wujitana helplessly, "It was still there when I left just now, but now it has disappeared. I don't know what happened." After saying that, Zumu was also confused. Just when Zumu was confused, a shout came from a distance. Zumu moved and walked away in an instant, and Wujitana on the side also followed Zumu's footsteps closely. Zumu followed the sound and walked behind a stone, only to see 4 disheveled men hiding everywhere. Zumu, who had doubts in his heart, asked a few people, "What are you hiding here for?" The 4 people who were hiding were startled when they heard Zumu's words, and then hurriedly booed Zumu. Then, the tall man among the 4 said in a low voice, "Brother, speak softly. You may have just arrived in this secret place and don't understand the situation. We are students of Kingsu College. We originally came here to practice. There are 10 of us in our group, and 2 of them are teachers." At this, the short man among the 4 men suddenly cried and said to Zumu, "Who would have thought that we would encounter a divine beast during the practice, and our teacher was killed in order to cover our escape. But the divine beast saw us running away and kept chasing us. There were originally 8 people, but now there are only 4 of us left." After saying that, the other 3 people also started crying. After all, they were all a group of children who had only seen fighting on the ring and had never seen such a bloody scene. Their classmates and teachers died one by one. It made them feel a little broken. When Zumu heard this, he probably understood that most elves would not kill people for no reason and cause war, but there are still some evil elves who are extremely hostile to humans, and they will fight to the death when they meet humans. It is estimated that this group of people encountered this kind of evil elves. That is why there were so many casualties. Thinking of this, Zumu felt a surge of anger in his heart. No matter what, evil elves are cancer to both humans and elves. Therefore, for the peaceful development of the human world and the elf world, the most important thing is to eradicate this cancer. Thinking of this, Zumu said to the 4 people in front of him, "Where is that elf? I will get rid of him." Hearing Zumu's words, the 4 people suddenly became excited and hurriedly said to Zumu, "Don't, brother. We understand your feelings, but you still have to put your own safety first." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 445 The Frog Comes to Life. Hearing what the 4 people said, Zumu was happy. It seemed that the 4 people did not recognize him. Who is he? He is Zumu. So what if he is a divine beast? Thinking of this, Zumu said to the 4 people, "Don't worry, take a closer look at who I am." Wujitana was happy when he heard Zumu's words. Wasn't it said that Zumu was extremely famous in the human world? How come these people don't recognize Zumu now? After hearing what Zumu said, the few people looked carefully. After taking a closer look, the tall boy shouted in surprise, pointing at Zumu and shouting, You are Mr. Zu." After that, he burst into tears again. He said loudly to Zumu, "Master Zu, you must avenge us." Zumu heard his words, looked at him with a firm look and said, "Don't worry, this kind of evil spirit must be killed by everyone. I will definitely avenge you." After that, Zumu summoned Greninja and said to it, "Frog, this time there is a big job. Do you want to take it?" Hearing Zumu's words, Greninja shouted excitedly, "Cool, master. What big job? I will take it. I must take it." After that, he looked at Zumu expectantly. When Zumu saw the look of Greninja, he felt funny in his heart. This frog, if it is said to do other things, it will not even move, but if it is said to fight, Greninja will dare to rush up with fists raised. Thinking of this, Zumu said to Greninja, "According to what they said, the elf is most likely a mythical beast. Go find it. Remember, it's an evil elf. Don't hit the wrong one. Go find it first. We'll be there soon." Hearing Zumu's words, Greninja flew out directly. He knew in his heart that if he didn't hurry up, those militants might come out to snatch his life. Didn't you see the envious look on Lugia's face beside Zumu? At this time, Lugia was about to collapse. It was clearly agreed that he would take action in the next battle. But this time he did take action and successfully became Zumu's mount for 2 more chapters. Just when Lugia collapsed, Greninja was still frantically looking for the mythical beast that Zumu said. At this moment, an evil breath came from nearby, and the battle-hardened Greninja immediately felt the source of the breath. Now, Greninja can't really control its hands and feet. When it senses that there are enemies nearby, Greninja's eyes will turn red. For Zumu, he has too many elves in his hands. A chance to fight often requires several elves to fight back and forth. If you don't fight, then there is really no chance to fight at all. For a fighting maniac like Greninja, this is simply unacceptable. If there is no war, what's the point of frog life? Thinking in his heart, Greninja's eyes are not idle, and he keeps groping around. At this time, Greninja suddenly locked the enemy's position. He only saw him move in an instant and came directly in front of the evil elf. The explosive mosquito, who was still looking for the few fish that slipped through the net, suddenly felt a chill around him, and saw a big toad waving a big ball in his hand and rushing towards him. The explosive mosquito, who was good at fighting, instantly mobilized his combat consciousness at this moment and avoided the attack of Greninja. Seeing that explosive mosquito dodged his attack, Greninja was not frustrated. Instead, he was full of fighting spirit. Now Zumu's fighting ability has become stronger, and Greninja has fewer and fewer opportunities to appear. He has long been unable to suppress his desire to fight. During the usual training, although he can fight with Charizard and Dragonite, they are always fighting back and forth, and both sides know each other very well. Slowly, the civil war seems meaningless. Now that he has suddenly encountered such a qualified opponent, Greninja is a little excited. It has been too long since he had a serious fight, resulting in Greninja's skills not being so proficient now. Now it is just the right opportunity to practice well. And explosive mosquito on the side is also a little confused. Since he saw those humans yesterday, he seems to have found something interesting. Explosive mosquito, who obviously has the ability to kill them all, did not kill them all at once. Instead, he tortured them slowly. He thought it would be fun to do so. This is why he did not kill them even though he could kill them all, but instead searched for them bit by bit and killed them slowly. For some reason, ever since the day that explosive mosquito was born, he has hated humans from the bottom of his heart. This can be explained as a gene engraved in the bones of these evil elves. You can also say that the author forced the setting. Just when he was still enjoying the pleasure of cat and mouse, a big frog suddenly appeared in front of him, waving a large energy ball spinning rapidly in his hand and smashing it towards him. Although he relied on his fighting instinct to safely dodge and was not injured. But in his eyes, the behavior of Koga Ninja was undoubtedly impolite. However, the doubtful explosive mosquito still said to Koga Ninja, "Big Frog, what are you doing?" While speaking, the face of the explosive mosquito was full of grievances. In the end, he was indeed a little aggrieved. When he was still playing the game, he was about to catch those few fish that slipped through the net. However, it was disrupted by a big frog that jumped out of nowhere. Thinking about it, the explosive mosquito's anger became more and more uncontrollable. Hearing what explosive mosquito said, Greninja said to explosive mosquito with a look of disdain, "With your indiscriminate killing of innocent people, you are an evil elf that everyone can kill." Hearing what Greninja said, explosive mosquito, who was already angry at the moment, could no longer suppress it. "You are looking down on me, explosive mosquito." Thinking in his heart, explosive mosquito looked at Greninja with anger. Before explosive mosquito could say anything else, Greninja on the side moved faster. Dozens of Greninja appeared in a shadow clone technique, and he had never seen such a posture. He didn't know that there was such a skill in the world, and he couldn't tell which one was real and which one was fake. Seeing the already confused explosive mosquito, Greninja was happy in his heart. This thing seemed to be quite capable, but in fact it was just a brainless rough guy. Thinking in his heart, Greninja didn't slow down at all, and directly threw a shuriken at explosive mosquito. At this time, Zumu also followed Greninja's footsteps to the battlefield, and saw Greninja coming up with a shadow clone that made explosive mosquito stunned. Zumu smiled secretly. Chapter 446 War Begins. Explosive mosquito is a fool, and he has never seen this kind of move. So, now explosive mosquito has no ability to resist, and even when he sees the clone of Greninja, he doesn't know how to crack it. Greninja, who didn't know Zoomu came to the field, still went his own way and did not hide his attack on Explosive Mosquito. Explosive Mosquito saw 4 or 5 Greninjas appearing beside him, and each of them had a large energy ball spinning rapidly in its hand. Explosive Mosquito knew the power of this big ball. Although he was not hit just now, he could also sense the residual power of the big ball hitting the ground. However, looking at these Greninjas in front of him, he couldn't tell which one was real and which one was fake. If Greninja knew Explosive Mosquito's psychology at this time, he would be so happy that he would roll around. Let's not talk about the power of the super large ball middle spiral water shuriken. Even if Explosive Mosquito can escape one, there will be several super large ball middle spiral water shuriken hitting him. At this time, the Explosive Mosquito had no idea what he was about to face. Now he wanted to take a gamble, to bet on which one was the real body of the Koga Greninja. The Explosive Mosquito made up his mind and punched the Koga Greninja in front of him. He saw that the Koga Greninja turned into a puff of smoke and disappeared, while the other Koga Greninjas slammed into the Explosive Mosquito with a large energy ball that was spinning rapidly. With a bang, the Explosive Mosquito had no strength to resist and was directly knocked to the ground. The shell on his body was covered with cracks, so dense that it seemed that it would fall apart if it was touched again. The Explosive Mosquito was even more confused now. What on earth was this big frog? Why did it start fighting right away? The most shocking thing was the skills he used directly. In his narrow cognition, he had never seen such magical skills. Now he began to doubt his life as an elf. Is my Explosive Mosquito a mythical beast? How could it be knocked down by a big frog in one go? This made him feel a little puzzled, but the stubborn Explosive Mosquito still felt extremely angry. As a divine beast, it is unreasonable that he can't even hit a frog. Where can I go to reason with this? Thinking of this, a huge red light burst out from the Explosive Mosquito, which was extremely dazzling. Zoomu clearly saw that the body of the Explosive Mosquito was gradually getting bigger, which looked very scary. Seeing this, Zoomu gradually understood why the elves in the Blood Pond secret realm could be Gigantamaxed. This was clearly because the Explosive Mosquito could not control its own ability, causing the energy in its body to spread and affect other elves. It gave them the ability to be Gigantamaxed. Clearing his mind, Zoomu continued to look at the situation in the field. Since this Explosive Mosquito could not be beaten, if he wanted to cheat, then let's try together. So Zoomu took out a bracelet directly from his Sumeru ring. Zoomu, who had just taken out the bracelet, suddenly felt something was wrong. Why would I need a bracelet to Gigantamax the Koga Greninja? Isn't this Wujitai right next to me? Can't I just find her if I have any problems? Thinking about it, Zoomu said to the Everlasting Tana beside him, Everlasting Tana, let's see your performance today. Everlasting Tana was stunned by what Zoomu said, and then followed Zoomu's gaze to look at the Greninja in the field, and she understood it immediately. Everlasting Tana then used her ability on Greninja, and the size of Greninja in the field increased directly, and then his combat power increased directly. When the Explosive Mosquito in the battlefield saw the appearance of Greninja at this time, he was also confused. What's going on? This frog can also be Gigantamaxed? At this time, the Explosive Mosquito suddenly felt a wave of energy coming from the back of the battlefield. Looking in the direction of the wave, he saw Zoomu and Everlasting Tana were active in the back. The Explosive Mosquito suddenly understood that the big frog in front of him was not a wild Pokémon, but a shame of Pokémon, and it followed humans to do evil. Thinking of this, the Explosive Mosquito's heart was about to explode, and the look in his eyes when he looked at Zoomu was full of murderous intent. Seeing Greninja in front of him was Dynamaxing, Explosive Mosquito made up his mind. Since he couldn't beat this big frog with frequent strange moves, he would kill Zoomu. Explosive Mosquito always believed that if he killed the trainer, the opponent's Pokémon would lose command. This is called capturing the king first. Thinking of this, Explosive Mosquito rushed towards Zoomu. Zoomu saw Explosive Mosquito's actions, smiled contemptuously, and said to Everlasting Tana, Everlasting Tana, did you see that? Every time there are Pokémon who want to provoke me, I said that I don't kill, but they always come to die on their own. After that, Zoomu didn't even move, but just looked at Explosive Mosquito coldly. When Explosive Mosquito saw that Zoomu didn't even dodge, he was even more angry, and he directly punched Zoomu. Suddenly, there was a thud, and Explosive Mosquito, who thought he would hit Zoomu, was stunned. He clearly felt that the one who received his punch was not Zoomu. Looking carefully, he saw that Greninja had come to him at some point and was firmly grasping his fist. Seeing that Explosive Mosquito had reacted, Greninja sneered at Explosive Mosquito and said, "Cool, Explosive Mosquito, your opponent is me. You ignore me like this, don't you think too much of me?" Seeing the scene in front of him, Zoomu just smiled faintly and said to Greninja, "Frog, you teach him to be a spirit. There are no restraints today. You let go of your hands and feet and do whatever you want." Hearing Zoomu's words, Greninja turned back excitedly and said, "Cool, don't worry, Master. I will definitely teach him to be a spirit." Explosive Mosquito on the side heard this and became even more angry. He took a step back directly, and the skills in his hand were not ambiguous at all, and the explosive fists were swung at Greninja one after another. When Greninja saw this scene, he was even more disdainful in his heart. Explosive Mosquito is a divine beast, and this is it. After dodging the punches from the Explosive Mosquito, Greninja came up with an idea. Greninja instantly moved behind the Explosive Mosquito, and the Explosive Mosquito also reacted quickly, turning around and punching directly at Greninja. Originally, Explosive Mosquito felt that he was safe, and was happy, but when he hit Greninja, his smile froze. Explosive Mosquito showed an expression of disbelief. The Greninja hit by him instantly turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. Chapter 447 Solution. Then, Greninja appeared behind Explosive Mosquito again and punched it hard. Explosive Mosquito hadn't reacted yet and was hit by Greninja. It's hard to say how heavy the full strength attack of Greninja was, but the power was enough to be comparable to many mythical beasts, and my current Greninja was still in the Gigantamax state. I saw Explosive Mosquito was knocked to the ground. The shell of Explosive Mosquito was already full of cracks. After this blow, his shell was shattered all over the ground. The bright red flesh on his body appeared directly in front of Greninja. Greninja, with a strong sense of combat, directly counterattacked with a fatal attack. Explosive Mosquito, whose shell was shattered all over the ground, was stunned at this moment. He had never taken off his shell since he was born. Among their race of Explosive Mosquito, the shell is the last line of defense to protect them. Now the last line of defense of the Explosive Mosquito has been broken, and his heart is full of dead silence. In his world, he never believed that his shell would be broken from the beginning to the end. Unfortunately, now his shell is directly shattered to the ground. At this time, the Explosive Mosquito did not notice that the Koga Frog had attacked him again. When the Explosive Mosquito saw the Koga Frog attack, it was too late. Koga Frog has been following Zoomu for such a long time, and has already subtly copied Zoomu's calmness. When he saw the enemy stunned, Koga Frog knew that it was time to decide the winner. Take advantage of his illness to kill him. This punch, which integrated Koga Frog's lifelong learning, hit the Explosive Mosquito's chest directly. Without the protection of the shell, the Explosive Mosquito is now a mortal body. And Koga Frog hit the Explosive Mosquito with all its strength, directly hitting the heart of the Explosive Mosquito, and directly pierced his chest in the unbelievable eyes of the Explosive Mosquito. At this time, the Explosive Mosquito looked at the Greninja in front of him, and his life flashed through his mind. From the moment he was born, his parents kept telling him to stay away from humans. Humans are the most brutal race in the world. They are evil, but they enslave the elves like gods. Explosive Mosquito thought about the end of his parents, and then thought about the result he was waiting for now, and a bitter smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He thought he could change the fate of the elves being enslaved by humans through his own abilities, but unfortunately, he fell into the hands of humans now. What made him most sad was not other things, but that he fell into the hands of his own people who were enslaved by humans. Zoomu on the side did not have the ability to read minds, so he did not know what Explosive Mosquito was thinking. If Zoomu knew what Explosive Mosquito was thinking, he would definitely tell him with a serious face that humans in this world did not enslave elves. Every trainer is trying to make friends with elves, and no human wants to enslave elves, because if a trainer wants to succeed, he must treat elves as family. Although Zoomu always quarrels with Greninja and other Pokémon, in his heart, he has long regarded Greninja as his own family. He also believes that there is no trainer who does not think so. Even those righteous humans or those villains, they all think the same as Zoomu. There is no good or bad in this world, there are only positions. Including the now dying explosive fly, in his heart, he has been working hard to get rid of the fate of the Pokémon family. So, in the cold eyes of Greninja, explosive fly fell to the ground with a bang, paying the price for his actions. Seeing that the explosive fly had been solved, Greninja instantly released the Gigantamax, walked quickly to Zoomew's side, and said to Zoomu, "Cool, master, my skills are not behind." After that, he looked at Zoomu with expectation. When Zoomu saw the appearance of Greninja, he was happy in his heart. Greninja can be said to have Zoomu in his eyes. Since Zoomu just embarked on the road of being a trainer, Greninja has been by Zoomew's side. Until now Zoomew's ability has reached the level of a demigod, and Greninja has been by his side through all the bloody storms along the way. Greninja has never complained about the hardship, of course, not when there is no battle. Zoomu kept sighing in his heart. Thinking about it, Zoomu said to Greninja, "You did a good job this time, it seems that your combat ability is not behind." Hearing Zoomu's words, Greninja was delighted and said to Zoomu, "Cool, master, you must call me for such a battle in the future." After that, he teleported directly back to the Pokeball on Zoomew's waist, and the Eterna on the side saw the scene in front of her and knew that the battle was over, and the purpose of her coming this time was over. She said to Zoomu, "Zoomu, since the matter has been resolved and there is nothing serious, I will go back now." Zoomu nodded to Wujitana after hearing what she said. Originally, Zoomu did not want Wujitana to come with him this time, but Wujitana wanted to help. Now that the matter has been resolved, it is time for Wujitana to go back. Thinking of this, Zoomu said to Wujitana, "Wujitana, thank you for this time, you can go back first." Hearing Zoomu's words, Wujitana muttered to himself, "This Zoomu, let people go without any problem, without even a hint of retention." Thinking of this, Wujitana rolled his eyes at Zoomu and teleported back home directly. Zoomu, who was rolled his eyes by Wujitana before leaving, had some questions in his heart. "What's the situation? I didn't force you to come, you came by yourself, and now you roll your eyes at him before leaving. This is unreasonable." Thinking about it, Zoomu looked at the scene around him and thought to himself, "This mission is over, so it's time to go home for dinner. The lovely Sirona is still waiting at home." Thinking about it, Zoomu's mind moved, and he summoned Arceus again. He said to Arceus, "Arceus, let's go home." Hearing Zoomu's words, Arceus was about to use a skill. A voice came to their ears, "Boy, it was you who killed the fool president of our Hunters Guild." Hearing this, Zoomu immediately recalled that the fool was a member of the Hunters Guild, and now their people have been found. Thinking of this, Zoomu looked in the direction of the voice, only to see a young man and a charming woman slowly walking towards him. Seeing that Zoomu had seen himself, the magician said to Zoomu, "Boy, you should feel a little lucky to be able to meet the two presidents of our Hunters Guild at the same time." Chapter 448, Two Presidents. After saying that, the magician looked at Zoomu and smiled contemptuously. Zoomu smiled in his heart when he heard the magician's words. No, where do these rubbish get the courage? Every time they meet, they speak wildly, and then lie on the ground honestly after a while. Why bother? Thinking of this, Zoomu said to the magician, "I know the fool you are talking about. He is the same as you. He was very crazy when he came up, and then he was gone. Now the grass on his grave is 2 meters high." Zoomu's words completely angered the two magicians. They didn't care about the life and death of the fool, they only had the interests of the Hunters Guild in their eyes. The president of the Hunters Guild itself is not 13 people, but only one person. It's amazing that this person has the ability to shuttle through the world, which lays the foundation for the Hunters Guild to capture the beasts in various worlds. Zoomu has not achieved this ability until now. Now Arceus has not collected all the stone tablets and cannot run around in various worlds. Thinking of this, Zoomu couldn't help but wonder what this Hunters Guild relies on to shuttle through the world. Having made up his mind, Zumu said to the magician, "Is there no more powerful trainer in your hunter guild? Why are there always scumbags like you?" After saying that, Zumu pretended to know nothing and looked at the magician seriously. Before the magician could speak, the priestess said angrily, "You stinky boy, don't think that defeating the fool is your capital of pride. I tell you, the fool, that idiot, has no strength at all. Don't compare his strength with ours. We are us and he is him. You defeated him, which can only be said that the fool is not as skilled as others, not that you are particularly strong." After saying that, looking at Zumu in front of him, she once again said word by word, "Boy, today is the day you die. You go to the underground with the fool, that waste." After saying that, she looked at Zumu with resentment. Zumu only saw the charming woman in front of him chattering. There was not a single useful word, just the same few sentences over and over again. "Go to hell." Hearing this, Zumu felt like he was going to get annoyed. How could there be such a slow person in the world? Thinking of this, Zumu said to the magician and the other two, "You two have been talking for a long time, but nothing is useful. Are you going to fight or not? If you don't want to fight, just say it directly. I still have to go home and cook." It's true, the villain dies because of talking too much. Hearing Zumu's provocative words, the magician's face turned red with anger. The magician instantly took out the Pokeball and then shouted, "Come out, Lugia." Then, in Zumu's surprised eyes, a Lugia came out of the Pokeball. Without waiting for Zumu to summon, Luofeng came out of the Pokeball on his waist. He said to Zumu, "Zumu, I have been your mount for such a long time. Last time, I was the one who solved the stupid fool from the Hunters Guild. Leave it to me this time. I promise, I will do it clearly for you this time." Luofeng's words made Zumu feel helpless. This Luofeng really didn't know how lucky he was. It would be so nice to be a mount every day without having to do anything. "You said you had to eat to find something to do. Okay, since you want to go up, then go up." It just so happens that there is also a Lugia on the opposite side. What's going on these 2 days? How come it's like a big release of mythical beasts? They really come out one after another, not to mention anything else. Just these 2 days, several mythical beasts have appeared. Thinking of this, Zumu said directly to Luofeng, "Okay, Luofeng, don't hesitate. Go and beat him. Teach him a lesson. If you don't fight well this time, you won't have to fight in the future. Just be a mount." Luofeng, who heard Zumu's words, became excited instantly. "What does it mean? Just this thing? You tell me that I can't beat this thing? Me, Luofeng, how can I not beat this ordinary Lugia with strong strength? I, Luofeng, am the king of Lugia." At this time, Luofeng felt that he was getting angrier and angrier. Why? Thinking, looking at the Lugia in the field, he turned his anger into strength, flew into the sky in an instant, and began to transform his form. The magician on the side saw a Lugia suddenly appear next to Zumu, and the magician was stunned when he saw this. No wonder this kid is so arrogant. It turns out that there is also a Lugia, plus there is another electric cat that has not appeared. It can be said that the kid in front of him now has 2 beasts. No wonder this kid is so arrogant, and that's why the fool fell into Zumu's hands. Unfortunately, the magician didn't know that before the fool died, the electric cat didn't even have a chance to attack. But now, I'm afraid this kid is not so lucky this time. I'm afraid he doesn't know that every president has a divine beast. Now he and the priestess are 2-2, plus their combat experience. How could they lose? It's really a joke. Not to mention that none of the 13 presidents of their hunters guilds have not fought in the bloody storm. Their names are not so easy to get, but they have fought their way out little by little in the constant battles. Thinking in his heart, the magician cast his eyes on the priestess. And the tacit understanding between the two has long been more than a little bit. Feeling the magician's gaze, the priestess on the side nodded at him. With a charming smile, he threw the Pokeball on his waist and shouted, "Cresselia, come out." And Zumu on the opposite side only saw a light blue Pokemon jumping out of the Pokeball. Seeing this, Zumu suddenly understood. These 2 people came so suddenly, and they were able to find his location directly. They must have followed something. When the fool died, no signal source was placed on Zumu, so there was only one explanation for their arrival. That is, they followed the electric cat. From the moment they were able to find the electric cat in countless worlds before, they should have captured the breath of the electric cat, so they were able to find Zumu accurately this time. Thinking of this, Zumu once again cast his eyes on the battlefield, looking at Luo Feng, who was changing his form, and the other Lugia beside him was also curiously looking at this fellow of his. Now he didn't understand why the fellow in front of him suddenly emitted a black light, just when everyone was stunned. Luo Feng finally completed the transformation. So, in the shocked eyes of everyone, Luo Feng slowly raised his head. Chapter 449. There's a story here. Luo Feng, who just raised his head, saw that everyone's eyes were all focused on him, and he was a little confused. What is this for? I, Luo Feng, just changed my form, so why are you looking at me like this? Have you never seen such a handsome guy? I'm really embarrassed to say that they all looked like they had never seen the world when they saw me. Thinking in his heart, Luo Feng proudly waved his wings and said to the magician Lugia with disdain, "Little brother, you are not good at this. Look at me, big brother, I have two skins, unlike you, who only have one original skin." Zumu behind Luo Feng heard this and instantly had a black line on his head. This Luo Feng is really too skinny. He doesn't care about anything. He just keeps talking nonsense. Don't you know that villains die because of talking too much? Thinking in his heart, Zumu shouted directly at Luo Feng, "Luo Feng, can you fight? If you can't, change the elves." Luo Feng in the sky heard this and instantly became anxious. He shouted to Zumu, "Stop, don't change the elves. I'll fight. I can fight." As he said that, he rushed towards the magician's Lugia in an instant, and flapped his wings directly at the magician's Lugia's head, trying to defeat the enemy with one move. The magician's Lugia was also a ruthless elf. He directly dodged his head and used his body to resist Luo Feng's wings. Unfortunately, his idea was beautiful, but the reality was so skinny. Originally, I thought that Luo Feng was just an ordinary beast. Unfortunately, Luo Feng has been following Zumu since he was a child, and he has long been out of the category of ordinary beasts. His wings seem to have no attack power. However, whoever is beaten knows. So, in the unbelievable eyes of the magician and the priestess, the magician's Lugia flew backwards directly. He fell hard to the ground. At this time, the magician was a little surprised. "They are both Lugia. Why is your Lugia so good?" Not only the magician was surprised, but the priestess on the side was even more surprised. In her heart, among the 12 presidents of the Hunters Guild, none of them could be better than the magician. She could never forget the moment when she was just brought back to the Hunters Guild by the old president when she was a child. The other children were bullying her, just because the old president once said that they only needed 13 children out of 100. They all knew in their hearts that once they were abandoned, the only fate waiting for them was death. Therefore, the fight between these children was extremely fierce. In order to protect themselves, these children formed small groups one after another, not for anything else, just to be able to survive in this gamble of fate. And the priestess will never forget that when he was abandoned by everyone as the weakest, a boy in clean clothes reached out to her, looked at her with a smile and said, "I don't have a group either, otherwise let me protect you." After that, he looked at the priestess with expectation. However, the priestess knew that the child in front of her was different from other children. Why are other children ragged? But this child is different. His clothes were exceptionally clean, even like new ones. All this was nothing else, just because he was the biological son of the old president. Unlike other picked-up children, this child had this natural gap with them. This gap could not be made up by acquired efforts. The moment the boy reached out his hand to him, the priestess knew that the boy had entered her heart. This secret has always existed in her heart. Until now, she can't stand beside the boy, but he still doesn't have the courage to face the magician and say "I love you." This is the psychology of the priestess. Seeing the magician's first setback at this time, she was also shocked. In her heart, the magician has always been invincible. But now the priestess has no time to think so much. She shouted loudly to Cresselia beside her, "Cresselia, attack!" After receiving the order, Cresselia rushed directly to Luo Feng. She had never seen the scene just now. Although she was just watching the battle, she didn't know what to do now. After all, it was a race war, and a slap knocked Lugia to the ground. No one believed her when she said it, but the facts were in front of her. Moreover, the battle just now did not allow her to feel the opponent's weakness at all, which made her, who was originally a support system, a little embarrassed. There was no other way, so she had to release a mysterious guard to Lugia. Seeing this scene, Zumu suddenly laughed. These days, there is really everything. 2 against 1 is fine, but the second one is still so cowardly that it makes people feel distressed. Although he just threatened Luo Feng, but in Zumu's heart, he had long since stopped taking this battle to heart. If every battle is taken to heart, then Zumu's heart is too big. Besides, Luo Feng has fought with his own elves before. The result is obvious. Luo Feng directly crushed the opponent without any surprises. Thinking of this, Zumu couldn't help but reveal a trace of sarcastic smile at the corner of his mouth. This group of people is really coming to find someone to fight, but now they are afraid to fight. Then, Zumu said to Luo Feng in the sky, "Luo Feng, can you fight back the 2 beasts on the opposite side?" Luo Feng was unhappy when he heard this. "What does it mean?" "I found that you have some questions in your mind now, Zumu. What do you mean by whether you can fight back? Also, when will I, Luo Feng, lose a battle?" "How come you, Zumu, have no confidence in me now?" "You have to show your confidence. Let me see that you, Zumu, have infinite faith in me, Luo Feng." Thinking of this, Luo Feng looked at Zumu in grief and anger, and then cast his eyes on the magician's beast and Cresselia in the field again. Seeing Luo Feng's eyes at this time, he couldn't help but feel proud in his heart. "What's the situation? This doesn't treat us as elves. You are an elf. There are 2 of us here. You have to distinguish the primary and the secondary." Thinking of this, Cresselia said directly to the magician's Lugia, "Just fight with confidence in a while. I will go to assist you." Hearing Cresselia's words, the magician's Lugia nodded silently and said directly, "Watch me." While speaking, he completely forgot how he was beaten just now. Seeing the 2 elves making plausible arguments, Luo Feng felt a little helpless. It's true that there are elves for every trainer. Luo Feng stayed here for a while without saying a word, and let the 2 idiots on the opposite side arrange everything. If he didn't say anything, would he die soon? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.